Good morning to you and welcome to this live broadcast of the National Assembly, this being a morning session on this third day of a Wednesday, the date being 16th of February, the year is 2022. We are glad you're watching. This broadcast is brought to you courtesy of the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit, and this is in conjunction with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. As a lot has been lined up before the House this morning, and to just take you through some of the highlights in the order of business is that a total of 3 bills will be tabled for the first time before the floor. And the first bill is by Rangwe, Member of Parliament, Honorable Lilian Gogo. The bill is the Children Bill, Bill number 49 of the year 2021. And the bill by Honorable Gogo seeks to repeal the Children Act 2001. This is to provide for parental responsibility, fostering, adoption, custody, maintenance, guardianship, care, and protection of children. And this is to make for provisions for the administration of children's institution, to give effect to the provisions of the Constitution for the connected purposes. The bill seeks to align the provisions of the bill with provisions of Article 53 of the Kenyan Constitution. The bill also seeks to align the Children Act of the Constitution, international and matters regional treaties and instruments dedicated for the promotion and protection of children's rights. Another bill that is set to be tabled is the Geriatric Bill, a bill by Gathoni wa Mushomba. And the bill seeks to give effect to Article 57 of the Constitution by establishing a legal framework for the treatment of older members of the society. The bill further seeks to improve the living conditions of older members of the society by providing for their rights to human dignity, safety, and matters security, education, health, and equality, and matters non-discrimination. The last bill that will be tabled for the first time is a bill by Honorable Kasait Kamket. The bill is the Traffic Amendment Bill, Bill number 60 of the year 2021. And the bill by Honorable Kamket is seeking to amend the Traffic Act Cap 403. This is to align it with the Constitution to facilitate the implementation of the traffic laws and matters regulations. The bill also seeks to provide a framework. This is for development of the strategies and ensure that operations in the traffic sector are conducted in compliance with the prevailing regulations. And finally, the bill seeks to harmonize the provisions of the Principal Act of the National Transport Authority, number 33 of 2012, regarding the regulations made under the Act with the traffic-related laws for the safety of road users as well as the general public. The bill has total clauses being 6 and seeks to streamline the operations in the traffic sector. The Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Moses Cheboy, has just made his way into the chamber, and I'm now handing over for the live broadcast. Remember, you can also follow up on this live broadcast on our YouTube channel, on Parliament of Kenya, as well as on KBC Channel 1. Enjoy your viewing. Good morning.
Tuombe. Ewe Mwenyezi Mungu, ambaye kwa hekima na wema wako umeteua nyadhifa za viongozi na mabunge kwa ustawi wa jamii na utawala wa haki wa wanadamu. Twakusihi tutazame kwa neema nyingi sisi watumishi wako, ambaye umeridhika kutuita ili tutekeleze shughuli muhimu za jamhuri hii yetu. Twakuomba ututeremshie baraka zako sisi tuliokutanika hapa, na utujalie tuyatende na kufikiria mambo yote yatakayofikishwa mbele yetu kwa njia ya haki na uaminifu, ili utukufu na sifa zako ziendelezwe, na ili kustawisha amani, fanisi na heri ya nchi hii yetu, na wale ambaye haja zao umezikabidhi mikononi mwetu. Amen. Other members, obviously, as we approach elections, both primaries and the general election, we should be expecting more of this. That is to say that we do not have the required numbers. I'm not giving excuse for any member who is not here, but I'm just making a honest observation that this is one of the lowest numbers that we have had in a long time. Yeah. So I order that the bell be rung for 10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Honorable Moses Chaboy has decried of the low numbers in the chambers this morning, saying that this is the lowest ever recorded numbers in the chambers, and therefore ordering that the quorum bell be rung, and this is pursuant to Standing Orders number 35 of the House, to allow for members to make their ways into the chamber. On the entry of the chambers is a few members of parliament, led by member for Navaholo, who happens to be the chief whip of the National Assembly, and by all indications is that he's out of the house to whip members to get to the chamber to allow for the house to commence business this morning. This being a sitting that members' bills, also known as private bills, have been given priority for deliberations before the floor this morning. After the three bills are read and tabled for the first time before the floor, the House will move to the Committee of the Whole stage, and at the Committee of the Whole, a total of 4 bills are set for consideration before the Committee of the Whole. Just to mention a few is the National Management Authority, a bill by Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, Bill number 10 of 2019, the Public Service Amendment Bill, Bill number 27 of 2019 by Honorable Benjamin Mwangi, the Alcoholics and Control Bill, Bill number 70 of 2019 by Honorable Silvana Sosoro, is also a bill that will be considered by the Committee of the Whole this morning. The House will be resuming debate on the Community Health Bill, this being National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2020 by Honorable Martin Owino. And the House has about 1 hour to conclude debate on that particular bill. The Poverty Eradication Authority Bill, Bill number 13 of 2020 by Honorable John Waluke, is a bill at the second reading stage. The Public Procurement and Asset Disposals Amendment Bill by Honorable Patrick Wainaina, Bill number 20 of 2020, is also a bill that is also lined up for debate before the floor. The Sexual Offences Amendment Bill, being number 24 of 2020 by Honorable Gathoni Wamuchomba, is also another bill that members are set to make input on. The Insurance Professionals Registration Bill, and the Health Amendment Bill by Honorable Alice Wahome. There is also a bill that seeks to regulate birth and death registration, Bill number 32 of 2020 by MP for Gilgil, Honorable Martha Wangari, that is currently at the second reading stage. And members will be resuming debate on that particular bill. The Computer Misuse and Cybercrimes Amendment Bill number 11 of 2021 by Honorable Ed Nduale is also a bill that members will be debating. Members of Parliament continue streaming into the chambers, and this is to allow for the House to raise at least 50 members to allow it commence with its business this morning. And the Wednesday morning session being a session where members or bills by private members are given priority for deliberations. And input by members of Parliament. Pass on to Standing Orders number 42A, subsection 5. A couple of members of Parliament will be fielding questions for reply before specified departmental committee, and the member for Tiati, Honorable William Kamket, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Education that considering the severe drought being experienced in Tiati constituency, and which has forced families to migrate, and this is in search of water and pasture for their livestock, what measures has the ministry put in place to ensure that school feeding program in the constituency continues uninterrupted and with a view of keeping learners in school? That particular question will be replied before the Departmental Committee on Matters Education and Research. Member for Magarini, Honorable Michael Kingi, will be asking the Cabinet Secretary for Education to provide a status report, and this is in regards to the financing of infrastructure for the Galana Teachers Training College and the stalled Waresa Technical College in Magarini constituency. What measures has the ministry put in place to develop the infrastructure at Galana Teachers Training College, as well as ensure that Waresa Technical College is completed and operationalized? Finally, Michael Kingi, Honorable Member for Magarini, will be seeking to understand the steps the ministry is taking to ensure deployment of adequate staff for the Galana Teachers Training College. Similarly, his questions will be fielded before the Committee on Education and Matters Research. Nominated MP, Honorable Godfrey Otsotsi, will be fielding questions before the Cabinet Secretary for Matters ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs. And the Honorable Member wants the Ministry to provide copies for the quarterly quality of the service reports, if any. This is for all the licensed telecommunication operators in the country for the last 3 years. And could the Cabinet Secretary also provide a detailed report indicating all penalties, fines, and other charges paid by licensed telecommunication operators for the said period, specifying the name of each operator, incidents, period when the incident took place, quality of service, warning issued, if any, third parties involved, and the amounts paid. And finally, Honorable Godfrey Osotsi will be seeking to understand the actions the ministry has taken against licensed telecommunication operators or associated contractors who violate the law providing for poor quality services. The questions will be fielded before the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation. Honorable Wilson Sosion will be fielding questions for reply before the Departmental Committee on Matters Finance and National Planning. And in his questions, he wants the National Treasury and Planning to explain the status of payment of pension for Mr. Johnson Kipngeno Langat, a retired teacher who served under the Teacher Service Commission until the year 2002. And when will Mr. Langat be paid his pension dues, considering that he already provided all the necessary documentation for the processing of the same? Pursuant to Standing Orders number 44, subsection 2C, Honorable Kamau wa Mashukuru, the Member of Parliament for Kabete, will be seeking a statement, and in his request for a statement, it is about socio-economic empowerment for men, particularly those through expansion of access to finance to facilitate the initiation and the expansion of social enterprises. The statement on the socio-eco empowerment for men by Honorable Kamau wa Mashukuru will be fielded before the Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare. The National Assembly this morning has felt short of its quorum to allow it to transact business this morning, with a lot of bills lined up for debate before the floor this morning. The priority of debate has been given to Members' Bill and a couple of motions are also set for debate before the floor. The Sacco Society Amendment Bill, Bill number...
Since we still do not have the required numbers, we add an extra 5 minutes. That's pursuant to the relevant standing orders. We give out 10 minutes. We are allowed to make an additional 5. The additional 5 is the final time allotted for members to be present.
With the lapse of 10 minutes, as directed by the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Moses Sheboy, the House is yet to raise the requisite number. And so the Speaker has also ordered that the bell be rung for an extra 5 minutes. This is to enable or see if by the lapse of 5 minutes, the House will have raised the number to commence business this morning. According to Standing Orders number 37, on when the quorum is not present, it is directed that when the quorum bell is ringing, members shall maintain orders in the House. And we witnessed Chief Whip Honorable Emmanuel Wengwe stepping out of the chambers to whip members to the House to allow the House raise the at least 50 members of Parliament present to allow the House commence business this morning. And the requirement of 50 members is also in line with COVID-19 provisions that the House has been adhering to. The Universities Amendment Bill, a bill by the lead of majority, Bill number 35 of 2021, is currently at the second reading. and members of parliament will be making their input on that particular bill.
Order, members. Order. Order. Now business will begin. Considering that the Honorable Wangwe has just left to go and bring more members, and we can see we were missing only one. So we are considering Wangwe, who is actually walking in, as a number, and actually there are two. So let's proceed with business.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions. Order number 5, papers. Order number 6, notices of motion. Order number 7, questions and statements.
Honorable members, under this particular order, we will start with questions, ordinary questions. To set us off is the member for Tiati, the Honorable Kamket.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to ask the following question. Considering the severe drought being experienced in Tiati constituency, which has forced families to migrate inside to keeping learners in schools. I thank you.
Thank you very much. That one will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. Next is the member for Magarini. Honorable Kingi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question number 40 of 2022 to the Cabinet Secretary for Education. 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide a status report regarding the financing of infrastructure development for Galana Teachers Training College and the stalled Waresa Technical College in Magarini constituency? 2, what measures has the ministry put in place to develop the infrastructure at the Galana Teachers Training College and also ensure that Waresa Technical College is completed and operationalized? 3, what steps is the ministry taking to ensure deployment of adequate staff at the Galana Teachers Training College? Thank you.
Very well. That will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Education and Research. Next is a nominated member, Honorable Godfrey Osotsi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to ask question number 041 of 2022. And it reads, the question is directed to the Cabinet Secretary for ICT, Innovation and Youth Affairs. And it reads, 1, could the Cabinet Secretary provide copies of the quarterly quality of service reports, if any, for all the licensed telecommunication operators in the country for the last 3 years? 2, could the Cabinet Secretary also provide a detailed report indicating all penalties, fines, and other charges paid by licensed telecommunication operators for the said period, specifying the name of each operator, incidents, period when the incident took place, quality of service, warnings issued, third party involved, if any, and amount paid? 3, could the Cabinet Secretary further provide detailed technical reports of the critical terrestrial infrastructure, namely NOFB 1 and NOFB 2, for the last 3 years, prepared on quarterly basis, pursuant to the provisions of the Kenya Information and Communication Act 1998? And lastly, what actions has the ministry taken against licensed telecommunication operators and or associated contractors who violate the law by providing poor quality service? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
That will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation. What is it, Honorable Andai?
Mr. Speaker, thank you. We are doing fairly well in terms of these questions. But Mr. Speaker, just out of concern, I can see you referring these questions to relevant departmental committees to deal with them in the usual manner. Mr. Speaker, I would have wished that even as these questions are being referred to those committees, we have at least a leadership representative of those committees, if not the chairperson, at least the vice chairperson or a member, taking notes and acknowledging that they have actually understood the questions being referred to them, just for good order, Mr. Speaker. So I don't know what I have to say about this, Mr. Speaker. Otherwise, it would look like...
Of course, I agree with you, Honorable Andai, in terms of not only chairs being present, members, as many members as possible being present. It's, I mean, it's a better way to handle this matter. But of course, I see the whip representing the leadership is in here, the majority whip. I see the deputy leader of minority. I see the deputy minority whip. We have quite some leaders in the House. But in terms of questions, honorable members, what will be happening is that the chairs will be picking these from the Hansard. And as soon as questions have been asked, well, there is no time that a chair said I could not come to answer a question. I mean, I would not process a question because I was not present when it was asked. That is not, it can't happen. But of course, you know, Honorable Andai, just like I expect you to understand, you're a seasoned member yourself. At this point in time, it's not very easy to get many members in the House, including chairs, because even those chairs are also happy participants in, you know, elective politics. So even Andai, and I'm surprised that it comes from you, Andai, because you have actually been missing for a long time. Not in terms of, I know you have been very busy with committees. And your committee is actually one of the, I mean, it's doing very well. Remember, it has actually processed, you know, you have actually been of a lot of benefit to the counties because you have processed PSC reports up to a time that they are able to get almost as recent as possible. But when you are in those committees, the membership have not been asking your whereabouts because they assume that you must be dealing with some important things at committee. I'm also assuming that these other chairs are busy handling committee matters. So, whereas I agree with your concern, but I also am able to see that, you know, and in any case, you can see some chairs are already here. Some very serious chairs, including the chair of administration and national security. You know, he's here. Even a newly born chair also in charge of, I'm not so sure which committee. I'm sure I'm going to know that today more. In charge of ICT is here. I see there are quite a number of chairs who are here, very serious chairs. Yeah, you can imagine a newly elected chair, and she's already here, trying to take. I can see also the Honorable Tongi, another new kid on the block, is also here. I see the chairperson in charge of JLAC, a very seasoned politician. I can see Honorable nominee 001 wants to also pretend to be a chair. I'm not so sure which chair is sitting on other than the chair he is in now. Yeah. And also some chairs who have been in those seats before. You know, I can see the member for Kikuyu. So what is it, Senior Counsel? Let me get another member. I hope it is not on this one. Because I think we have...
Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, it is not to contradict or question your able guidance. It is only to seek further guidance. The question by the Honorable Godfrey Ososi, which is well put and has been well referred to the relevant committee, I happen to know that some aspects of it are actually also under discussion in the Public Accounts Committee, which is chaired by Honorable Wandai. And so I was wondering, in such circumstances, when you refer it to the relevant committee, at what point do we get a nexus with the consideration and the report that will come from PAC? Or is it possible that as you refer it, you ask the committee also to liaise with the PAC so that there's some consistency within the House? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Dr. Otiende, I'm trying to struggle to see any contradiction between the relevant committee, which is in this instance the Committee on Communication, Information and Innovation, whose chair is actually in the House right now, and the Public Accounts Committee. Because it has never, it's not been, I do not remember the last time we referred any question to PAC or even the Special Funds Committee. Because those ones statutorily have a certain mandate that some things are referred to them naturally, like the auditor's report and so forth. So in this particular one, I think the relevant departmental committee should be innovative enough. If there is any issue that they want to pick from PAC, they can do that. It's free, they can be able to do that. But really, you know, in terms of question, we only deal with the departmental committees. So in this particular instance, I think we are okay. So, but I expect the new chair to move with speed. Honorable Chair, well, I will proceed anyway, because I think she's concentrating elsewhere. So let's move to the next question by the Honorable Sosion.
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I rise to ask question number 042 of 2022, directed to the Cabinet Secretary of National Treasury and Planning. That one, what is the status of payment of pension to Mr. Johnston Kimngeno Langat of ID number 1774993, pension number 118125, a retired teacher who served under the Teacher Service Commission until the year 2000. Two, when will Mr. Langat be paid his pension dues, considering that he already provided all the necessary documentation for processing of the same? I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. That one will be, it will be replied to before the Departmental Committee on Finance National Planning. So we go to the next segment, which is requisition for statement by the Honorable Kamau Wamashukuru, member for Kabete.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Pursuant to Standing Order 44-2C, I rise to request for a statement from the chairperson of Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare regarding social economic empowerment of men. Honorable Speaker, various funds and programs have been set up in the country to address the social economic empowerment of women, youth, and persons with disability through expansion of access to finance, to facilitate initiative and expansion of their enterprise. These initiatives include Youth Enterprise Fund, Women Enterprise Fund, and the Ways of Fund. The major aim of the said initiative is to provide accessible and affordable credit to support them start and expand businesses. The said funds and programs are aimed to enhance economic growth towards realization of the same and sustainable development goals in eradication of extreme poverty and hunger and promotion of gender equality and empowerment of women. Honorable Speaker, regrettably, there is apparent exclusion of men aged 35 years and above. This is despite the fact that entrepreneurship is widely recognized as the prime mover of economic development through translation of ideas into action, and persons in the 35 to 50 years bracket are key. This exclusion and neglect of men in this age bracket, which is the most productive and comes with numerous society expectations and responsibilities, has resulted to inequities and vulnerabilities that has seen them left behind, therefore undermining their potential as individuals. Honorable Speaker, It is against this background that I seek for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare. In the statement, the chairperson should address the following issues. 1. Which programs has the government set up to address the socio-economic empowerment of men over the age of 35 years in the country? 2. What policies and social practices has the government put in place to ensure that men are not discriminated, excluded, and left behind in its socio-economic empowerment program? 3. Could the government consider establishing an entrepreneurship fund to provide accessible and affordable credit to support men start or expand business or undertake meaningful economic activities? Mr. Speaker, that is why we are talking of bottom-up and pesa mfukoni in the hustling nation.
No. No.
Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Well, let me not get into that because I wanted you to read out your statement as recorded. But that will be referred, of course, to the relevant committee, which is this Departmental Committee on Labor and Social Welfare. Now, what is it, Honorable Mbui?
Thank you, Chair. Speaker, I also want to seek your guidance on this issue of questions and statements. Some time back, I had a question to the Ministry of Education about some arbitrary regulations that they are coming through memos and circulars in the ministry. A case in point being the one for exam centers being collapsed, the one of use of school vehicles, the one of use of school fields. And Mr. Speaker, this question was referred to the Committee of Education. Unfortunately, Mr. Speaker, what happens is that statutory instruments are actually dealt with under the Committee of Delegated Legislation. Is it possible, Mr. Speaker, to organize that the questions that have to do with regulations are sent to that committee, because none of them end up at that committee? And so what the minister does is that he addresses the concerns without addressing the matters that are clearly spelled out in the Statutory Instruments Act, which states that any pronouncement by the minister must be put in the Kenya Gazette and brought to the House so that the House can deliberate and see whether to pass those regulations or not. Is it possible for you to assist so that some of those questions can go to the correct committee, which is versed with the way the statutory instruments are supposed to be processed, so that we can address those matters on behalf of Kenyans?
That what you have raised, the Honorable Mbui, is extremely heavy because it requires quite some consultation. Because by dint of the way we ask questions, they basically are supposed to be answered to by the cabinet secretaries or the permanent secretaries or principal secretaries in their specific ministries. You have actually raised an issue which, requires some thought, including asking the Procedure and House Rules Committee to pick up that particular one. You see what also the Honorable Dr. Amolo earlier, Dr. Amolo Atiende had just also made that observation, is that there are also some issues which could be in PAC and can be, there are some issues which PAC also can come in. So there has to be a way where we are able to get a nexus between the relevant departmental committee and probably borrow the expertise of some of the other committees. And it is something that is something worth, and as it is now, it's not possible. But it's something that needs to be explored. So much as, of course, you have an issue which requires quite a number of other committees we'll still stick to the committee that was referred to. They probably can ask also the other committee, and in future we might ask those committees to put some input into those particular questions as they're being answered. Yes, and who is Honorable, what is it?
Speaker, thank you,
on the
Speaker.
same thing?
Yeah, I have the same concern, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
Some time ago, I asked a question on Road Ikopany, a road which is not going very well, and communities are making a lot of noise. And for 3-4 times, I've been consulting with the chair of roads and infrastructure to bring that, to talk to the ministry to come and answer that question. Later on, Mr. Speaker, I was given a written response of the questions without even me being someone to go and present the question. So I say I cannot accept this because you should have called me to listen to the question to agree or not. Even him was surprised that there's a written version without a meeting taking place. So, Mr. Speaker, I need your guidance because that's not how we do business.
Questions that require written responses are always indicated clearly. But this one of yours, I believe, is one that did not require written response. It required the presence of the CS. So that I direct that it be redone. Yeah, so let that one be. And I really wish the chair, Committee on Transport and Public Works was here. That is something that is not satisfactory. In fact, what you are raising is that you are not satisfied with the written response, and what you expected was not a written response. You expected the CS to appear before the committee, answer, and then you can seek clarifications from there. So I think that one is one that needs to be done again. Now, we could, Honorable Sankok, what is it?
Honorable Chair, thank you, first of all, for giving me this opportunity. Now that we have the Chairman of Interior Security Committee here, Mudhuri wa Modegi, the
Order.
Honorable
Order.
That one mean...
you don't, they are parliamentary
languages.
Acceptable parliamentary languages, and we know them.
Yes.
They are actually two.
It means traditionally he was given that leadership staff as a Kikuyu elder. And only two of them have in this country, him and Uhuru Kenyatta. I think also our speaker also given. So, Honorable Speaker, I had asked a question.
What is it that you want from the Honorable Mwade this morning? Because really, with those kind of praises, it can be only leading to somewhere. What is your point of order, Honorable Ishungwa? Though he's also on a point of order anyway.
But Honorable Speaker, you know, I take offense when the good 001, who comes from Narok County and from the Ma community, purports to be an expert on Kikuyu traditions. And what is actually said is actually not true. And because he's a House of Records, Honorable Speaker, I think it's only right that he corrects that only two people have what is called Mudhegi. That's the Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta and the Honorable Mwadi. The chair of the committee of Jaila, who is seated behind him, is also an elder and has it, Honorable Speaker. And so do I, and many others, Honorable Speaker. So it is only right that the Honorable Sankok comments maybe on those who hold the same staff within the Ma community, because he may know those, but not those in Kikuyu and Honorable Speaker.
I have known the Honorable Sankok for a long time. And before I even give the chair Jailak, I said I've known Sankok for a long time. I'm not so sure what he's actually trying to get out of the chair, administration and national security. There must be something, because it's not normal. It's not normal. But and again, for him to say that he's an expert in the field you just indicated, the honorable member for Kikuyu, I'm not so sure it's difficult for him to be not to have information. Looking at him, and I would not want to go beyond what I've said, he looks like he might be having some information. But let's hear from the member for Kangema.
Yeah,
probably, you know, I'm not so sure you have the staff yourself.
That's why member for 001 happened to be a Kikuyu. You become a Kikuyu through your mother. And this man's mother is his mother is Waidera. So I don't know what Honorable Ishungwa is talking about, because this is brother is a Kikuyu, So and all it meant is a leader. Simply is leader. It's like the word safari is not little English, but it is the usage will take currency.
So
in due course.
As you progress.
So Mudhegi simply means an elder, which Kimani Ichungwa, Honorable Kimani, is not. So,
are you?
It means a respected elder. He is too young.
Yes.
My colleague here is.
And I'm asking, how about you, the honorable?
I am sure you are. You are honorable.
No, I'm saying
speaker.
you, not.
You are. I'm sure. I can assure you, you are, and you'll be acceptable. But the member for Kikuyu. The member for Kikuyu is not here.
So by virtue of his age, he cannot be an elder. That's what you are
not
saying.
necessarily age. Conduct. There are many other considerations. There are many other considerations, respectability, the way he carries himself.
Is the fact that he's an alumni of Alliance not considered?
No, it is not.
Okay, then
It
we
is-
should leave it there.
No.
We would not want to delve into
Not
cultural
only him,
issues
not
in
only
Parliament.
him, even his mentor, Kare Francis, is not.
Yeah.
So it is a question of him. He has to come and talk.
So we will leave it there.
He has to come and talk to the elders.
We will leave it there, the Honorable
Yes.
Member for Kangema. Now, from the description of what you've just indicated, there is a probability that the statement by the Honorable Sankoki is not factual, because it means other than the two which he had mentioned, there is a probability, and it looks very likely, that the third one can be seen even in this house, who is the member for Kangema. So anyway, let's leave that for now. We can discuss that in other areas. So the Honorable Sankok, now please go to the point, because I think you have made all the niceties that you could to praise your colleague. Now say what you want.
I'd say there are three of them and there are stages, and even Kimani Ushungwa have graduated, or he have progressed from butchara. You know, he had a butchery in Kikuyu. Now
I can see Honorable Sanko.
So I had asked a question.
Honorable Sanko.
Yes, sir.
I can see there is a lot of maternal influence in your thinking. But let's proceed now to the main issue.
You know, it is only Honorable Muturi who knows that my mother is a Kikuyu, but my mother is a Maasai. Anyway, Honorable Speaker, I had asked a question on the 15,000 acres purported owned by the Deputy President in Laikipia. And I have never been answered that question. And Honorable Muazi had started by praising him, that he's a Muduri or Modegi, who never lie. And I don't know on this question why they never answered me when the Interior CS, Matiangi, came to this house, lied on the Hansard that William Ruto owns 15,000 acres of land in Laikipia. And he said that let that land be subdivided and be given to hustlers. Up to now, we have not known the status of that land. Lastly, Honorable Speaker, as I go to sit, there is somebody by the name Honorable Kamau Wamashukuru. And you know, this guy is saying that the men from the age of 35, from his statement that you have just read,
and
that they have been...
Please don't use that term, guy, on your colleagues.
Oh, this honorable member, Honorable Kamau...
Let's learn to appreciate each other's titles.
Yes.
Sometimes they are not they are temporary. So
Honorable member of Kabete, Honorable Wamashukuru. The honorable member had sought a statement on the status of men above the age of 35. You know, we have the youth fund for men below and women below 35. We have the women enterprise fund. We have all affirmative action targeting those. But when it comes to men of the age bracket in which I am, and Honorable Nyikal is, and you, Honorable Speaker, is 35 years and above, they are not targeted. We are an endangered species. So you want to know what measures have been put in place so that also we can be targeted.
Order, take your seat now.
Thank you, Honorable.
You know, you cannot buttress a statement by your colleague. Even if, for example, to raise that now because 35 and above are endangered, probably they should have nomination to Parliament. No. I think what we need to do is to allow him to process whatever he has asked, and when it is going to be responded to, you will have all the opportunity to, to Honorable Sankok to, participate in the discussion. On the first one, and now realize, of course, there was something you are looking for, and you're actually looking for answer to your question. So maybe just a quick one, the chair, what is the status of that particular matter? Many times there are many good reasons. Is it possible that it is going to be coming soon so that the nominee does not have to praise you very hard in the morning?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And Honorable Speaker, Honorable Sankok is not wrong. In terms of the hierarchy of leadership in Kikuyu culture, I rank at the top, among the top. So let there be no doubt that Mudhuri wa Muthegi is just any other. There are stages, and I'm 3 stages from the top. Honorable Speaker, on the second part about the question, Honorable Speaker, that question was submitted to the Minister, but there was pronouncement, Honorable Speaker, that at the end of last session, that those ones had lapsed. But if indeed he wants to raise that matter again, I'm ready to respond, Honorable Speaker.
Maybe I'll confirm whether that actually had lapsed, because we had done the standing orders in such a way that they, spill into the next sitting. We'll confirm that, the Honorable Sankok, and then ask, of course, why it should have been answered quickly so that they do not lapse. But that being the case, Honorable Sankok, you have raised the issue, it will be followed up. So I think we can stop it there. That will be confirmed. I would want you to ask from the clerk's department, specifically the ones who deal with processing of question, so that we see how you can be able to sort out the matter. It's something that will be handled there. That should not be a problem. It's administrative. It's administrative, Honorable Sankok. So let's not open it up. We will confirm. Then you should be getting an information soon. Okay. Thank you very much. But in the meantime, on the issue of the matter of labor, I would have been happy for them to give us timelines. Now that we're getting to the tail end of our term, we should be able to know how things are going to be processed fast. And since I cannot see the chair labor, we give them 3 weeks. 3 weeks.
Order number 8, the Children, number 2 bill, National Assembly Bill number 49 of 2021, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to give effect to Article 53 of the Constitution to make provision for parental responsibility, fostering, adoption, custody, maintenance, guardianship, care, and protection of children, to make provision for and regulate the administration of children's institutions and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 9, the Geriatric Bill, National Assembly Bill number 51 of 2021, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to give effect to Article 57 of the Constitution to establish the National Council for Older Persons of Society to provide for the care, protection, and empowerment of older members of the society, to provide for the maintenance of well-being, safety, and security of older members of society, and for connected purposes.
Next order.
Order number 10, the Traffic Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 60 of 2021, first reading. A bill for an act of parliament to amend the Traffic Act, Cap 403, and for connected purposes.
Next order. Now, honorable members, before we go to the next order, the Honorable Benjamin Gadhiru Mwangi, the member for Mpakasi Central, who was processing the Bill on Public Service Commission Amendment, Bill National Assembly Bill number 27 of 2019, has written requesting that the matter be deferred. Well, whereas we will accept that deferral, I think it is extremely unfair, honorable members, because members should not do it at the just before we come to the House to process it. Because the net effect is that you will be losing out on a matter that could have been handled that a member was ready on in terms of the private member's bill. So in future, should a member want to have it deferred, they should be able to communicate early enough so that the order paper reflects the changes, and if there is an opportunity, another member is given an opportunity to process their bills. So in future, I do not think we should be allowing members to withdraw just an hour or two before, the matter is transacted here. So then, therefore, it means we'll only be handling the Disaster Management Authority bill and the Alcoholic Drinks Control Amendment bill. And on this particular one, there are a few amendments that have been approved and therefore will be circulated so that the members can familiarize themselves as the first one is being dealt with. So then we move to the next order.
Order number 11, Committee of the Whole House.
Order. Honorable members, you are in Committee of the Whole House. There is just a little bit of housekeeping. We should be kicking off in the next few minutes. Just a little patience. We should be able to proceed in a few minutes. Honorable members, we shall start with the National Disaster Management Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2019.
Clause 3.
I propose the question that clause 3 be part of the bill. There's no amendment to that, honorable members. I therefore put the question that clause 3 be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 4.
I propose the question that clause 4 be part of the bill. There are proposed amendments by the committee, the chair committee. The elder.
Yes.
The newest elder on the block, as I learned today.
Yes.
That you are the chair. Proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I propose that clause 4 be amended as per the order paper, and this is to enable access to services to all parts of the country and not just a few counties.
I propose the question that clause 4 be amended as proposed by the chair. The Honorable Manzo.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I rise to support the chair on that amendment. The first bit of it was selective and across the country and the regions. You remember, Chair, currently counties are clumped into regions because of the new constitution. So the first, as the article was, Chair, it was segregative and was unconstitutional, and therefore now it has been constitutionalized. I support.
I put the question that clause 4 be amended as proposed by the chair. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. So I now put the global question that clause 4 as amended be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 5.
I propose the question that clause 5 be part of the bill. Chair, there are quite a bit of amendments to this.
Yes, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I propose that clause 5 be amended as per the order paper, and the justification, Honorable Chair, being that this is to provide for coordination of disaster management activities at national and county level by the authority. I thank you.
I propose the question that clause 5 be amended as proposed by the chair. I see interest from the Honorable Martin Owino, the member for Ndiwa.
Thank you, Chair. I really want to support the chair on this and the committee. But as we do this coordination, I think it will need wider thinking of linkage to the lower people, the villagers, the first responders, and all that. If not covered here, because these are areas where either problem brewed to bring disaster or an information can be given. I'm talking about the access roads, toll-free numbers, and energy. Yeah, it's done as a surface level, but I would just love to have some details. I'm not opposing, but I'm just warning that those lower cadres are very, very vital in dissemination of information.
I now put the question that clause 5 as amended. Yeah? As amended, be part of the bill. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as the contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now put the global question that clause 5, as amended, be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of our opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 6.
I propose the question that clause 6 be part of the bill. There are proposals to amend by the chair.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I propose that clause 6 be amended as per the order paper, and this is to ensure that the powers of the authority are placed in the same clause, just to tidy up, Honorable Chair.
I propose the question that clause 6 be amended as proposed by the chair. I now put the question that clause 6 be amended as proposed by the chair. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now put the global question that clause 6, as amended, be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Honorable members, the global question. I now put the global question that clause 6, as amended, be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 7.
I propose the question that clause 7 be part of the bill. There's no amendment to this. I now put the question that clause 7 be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 8.
I propose the question that clause 8 be part of the bill. There's amendment by the chair.
Honorable Chair, I propose that clause 8 be amended in accordance with the order paper. And this basically, Chair, to align the provisions to Mwongozo guidelines that the board in particular, in nature, therefore, the board is peculiar in nature, therefore, there is need to include more members from the national government sector, which number exceeds the number of persons provided for in the guidelines that guide the conduct of the board activities.
I propose the question that clause 8 be amended as proposed by the chair. The Honorable Dr. Makali, you have something to say to this?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I support.
Very well. Honorable members, I now then put the question that clause 8 be amended as proposed by the chair. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I then put the global question that clause 8, as amended, be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 9.
I propose the question that clause 9 be part of the bill. There's no amendment to this. I now put the global question that clause 9 be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 10.
I propose the question that clause 10 be part of the bill. Chair?
Honorable Chair, I propose that clause 10 be amended as per the order paper, and this basically, Honorable Chair, to align it to the Mwongozo guidelines that the members shall hold office for a term of 5 years.
I propose the question that clause 10 be amended as proposed by the chair. I see interest from the Honorable Member for Kikuyu, Honorable Kimani.
Thank you, Chair. I rise to support, and indeed, Honorable Chair, thank the Chair of the committee for that, because at the time we drafted this bill, that was indeed an oversight. It should have been in line with the Mwongozo policy, where we have 2 terms of 3 years each. And it's indeed good that the Chair of the committee and the committee noted that and have rectified, and I support.
I now put the question that clause 10 be amended as proposed by the chair. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now put the global question that clause 10 as amended be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clauses 11. and 12 and 13.
I propose the question that clauses 11, 12, and 13 be part of the bill. There are no amendments to this. I therefore put the question that clauses 11, 12, and 13 be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 14.
I propose the question that clause 14 be part of the bill. Chair, you have proposals to this, to amend?
Yes, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I propose that clause 14 be amended as per the order paper. And this basically, Honorable Chair, to open qualifications to other relevant fields related to disaster management so that they are also able to apply. I thank you.
I propose the question that clause 14 be amended as proposed by the chair. I see interest from the Honorable Toom, member for Nandi.
Chair, I support. We need other qualified men and women to apply. We don't need it to be closed. I support.
I now put the question that clause 14 be amended as proposed by the chair. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. And now put the global question that clause 14 as amended be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clauses 15, 16, and 17.
I propose the question that clauses 15, 16, and 17 be part of the bill. There are no amendments to this. I now put the question that clauses 15, 16, and 17 be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? Ayes have it.
Clause 18.
I propose the question that clause 18 be part of the bill. Chair, you're proposing to delete?
Honorable Chair, thank you. I propose that clause 18 be amended as per the order paper, and this basically because the powers of the authority are already provided for, and the performance of their duties is also provided for.
I propose the question that clause 18 be deleted as proposed by the chair. The Honorable Kimani, member for Kikuyu.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I think I support. I had seen like it was complete deletion, but indeed it's not a deletion. It's reordering, because what he has done is taken clause 18 and made it H of clause 6.
Correct.
So it's okay.
That is. But for purposes of neatness, it is a deletion. So therefore, members, I now put the question that clause 18 be deleted as proposed by the chair. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as our contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clauses 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25.
I propose the question that clauses 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, and 25 be part of the bill. And now put the question that clauses 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and 24, and 25 be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of our contrary opinion say nay? Ayes have it.
Clause 26.
I propose the question that clause 26 be part of the bill. Chair.
Honorable Chair, I propose that clause 26 be amended as per the order paper, and the justification is that the main function of Cabinet Secretary is to develop policy, and as such, state agencies are part of stakeholders in the process. Honorable Chair.
I propose the question that clause 26 be amended as proposed by the chair. I put the question that clause 26 be amended as proposed by the chair. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. And now put the global question that clause 26 as amended be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
bill. Yes. Clauses 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35.
I propose the question that clauses 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35 be part of the bill. I now put the question that clauses 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, and 35 be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clauses. New clause 21A.
The mover to move second reading of the new clause.
Honorable Chair, I move that new clause, just 1 minute.
21A.
New clause 21A be now read a second time. Honorable Chair, this is a clause that, going by the age we are in, the digital age, that will enable the authority to develop and maintain an electronic database that is to contain information for the use by public and any other institution, and that will make the work that we'll be doing, Honorable Chair, quite easy.
I propose the question that new clause 21A be now read a second time. I see interest from the Honorable Manzo, member for Makueni.
Yes, Chair, this seems to be very substantive amendment, Chair, and seems to enrich what was originally there by the Honorable Ichungwa. And Chair, although the chair of the committee, Honorable Mwafi, has explained briefly that it is going to be electronic, you can see the inclusion of non-governmental organizations involved in disaster management. And Chair, I want to support this because when disaster strikes of whatever nature, whether it is earthquake, whether it is a tsunami, or the sea has an earthquake and has flown into the city, or fire, or when you are struck by terrorists, like you saw last time, we had to get experts from Israel. And I believe that is covered generally there because of the non-governmental organizations in disaster management and experts. And there's a time we had to get people from Israel to come and help rescue our people because they are used to that kind of thing. So I think the inclusion is important so that when we have such a situation, Mr. Speaker, Chair, we are not constrained by law. While disaster needs to be attended immediately to save life. I support.
The Honorable Dr. Owino, Martin Owino, the member for Ndiwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also want to support the chair in this, especially the part D, which talks of emergency response capacity building across the board. This is very timely, and thank you, Chair. I support.
The Honorable Dr. Makali, you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I also want to support this amendment, being a committee member, because the amendment, Honorable Chair, brings some very important aspects of disaster management. The first one, Honorable Chair, is where we are talking about the bodies involved, so that we have a data bank of all the bodies involved. The second one is where we are saying the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics will also be providing information, and more so, disaggregated data relating to issues, disaster. So, Honorable Chair, I think to me this amendment is very good, and it's going to improve the current situation where we have a lot of disorganization when it comes to management of disaster. I support.
Well, honorable members, allow me then to put the question that new clause 21A be now read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now propose the question that new clause 21A be part of the bill. I now put the question that new clause 21A be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clause 21B.
Mover to move reading of new clause 21B.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I move that new clause 21B be now read a second time. And this clause, Honorable Chair and members, basically relates to development of disaster management plans. And this will enable the authority, therefore, once they have these plans, to have collaborative efforts within the counties and other stakeholders, which are very, very essential, Honorable Chair, in managing and preventing disasters in our country. I thank you.
I propose the question that new clause 21B be now read a second time. The Honorable Manzo.
The chair has used plan. Should it not be a policy? Although now this law should have in the first place been informed by a policy, and it be a private member's bill by the Honorable Uchungwa of member for Kikuyu. Now you are talking of plans, where I believe plans could also include policy or preparation in the event of a disaster, some guidelines which could be followed. I believe that could be the case, or a part of legislation which could be delegated later on under this law. So if kindly could clarify or how you will include the policy and any other plan which could amount into delegated legislation. Thank you.
The Honorable Two, Member for Nandi.
Honorable Speaker, I support development of plans. The national government and the county governments have to be incorporated, and there should be a planned way of dealing with disasters. Occasionally, the disasters in the country have been dealt haphazardly. No finances have been set aside, but the county governments will have their finances and the national government, so that everything which will be done in a planned manner. I support.
The Honorable Ishungwa, member for Kikuyu.
Chair, I support the particular amendment, and just listening to what the Honorable Manzo is saying, it's indeed true that if it was a policy, it would be better, but it's also equally important that disaster management plans are reviewed regularly, because we run the risk of having a policy in books, but because nobody sits to regularly review the disaster management plans, then between the many state and other organs that are involved in disaster management, Honorable Speaker, then we run the risk of just having policies that are there in books, but are really never implemented through plans. And it's indeed good that the committee thought of this kind of amendment, and I support.
Honorable members, I now put the question that new clause 21B be now read a second time. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Will as many as that contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now propose the question that new clause 21B be part of the bill. Allow me then to put the question that new clause 21B be part of the bill. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clause 21C.
Mover.
Honorable Chair, I move that new clause 21C be now read a second time. Honorable Chair, this is basically dealing with classification disasters, and the aim of the clause is to provide for the entity that determines whether an event or a disaster or a situation or a class of event or a situation is to be treated as an emergency or a disaster, as well as to provide for the roles of both levels of government in the event of a disaster, in assisting victims of disaster by providing relief, preventing or combating disruption, or dealing with effects of disaster. And basically, Honorable Chair, to avoid duplicity in the two levels of government so that they have concerted efforts.
I propose the question that new clause 21C be now read a second time. The Honorable Dr. Makali.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I rise to support this amendment. That is the new clause 21C. And what is very important to me, Mr. Chairman, is the issue of determining the magnitude and severity of the disaster. This is critical, Mr. Chairman, because we have seen at times the government being accused of treating the disaster in a kind of a biased way. That disaster occurs in one region and it occurs in another region. The way the government reacts to disaster differs from one region to another. So when we have a clear framework on how to determine the mechanism, the magnitude and severity of the disaster, it is very good for the country. I support.
The Honorable Shungwa.
Chair, this is indeed a good amendment. Honorable Chair, if the most recent event to occur, Honorable Speaker, you remember the collapse of the mines in Bondo. And if we had an authority that would have assessed this disaster and classified it whether it is a national disaster or a county level disaster, then be able to mobilize resources to cater for the needs that would be there in that particular disaster. And it is indeed sad, Honorable Speaker, that a young man in Bondo stayed underneath. I don't know if even up to date, Honorable Speaker, that body was ever recovered. But you can imagine if we had such an authority at the time of the collapse of that mine, and they were able to determine that this probably, even having happened within a rural setting in Bondo, it is a national disaster in terms of the level of equipment and management and expertise that is required in that area, Honorable Speaker. Maybe we will not have lost the lives or the life that we lost in Bondo, and therefore I want to support this, because in future, the authority now will be able to determine the magnitude of a disaster, whether you need resources that may outstrip what is available locally at the county level, and be able to mobilize resources either nationally or from other experts and development partners. Thank you, Chair.
Well, the Honorable Martin Owino, the member for Ndiwa.
Thank you, Chair. This is well done, and especially number 7, which says, despite all the classifications, the two levels of government can still assist each other. I think that is wonderful. I support.
I now put the question that new clause 21C be now read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I then propose the question that new clause 21C be part of the bill. I now put the question then that new clause 21C be part of the bill. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clause 21D.
Mover, new clause 21D.
Honorable Chair, I propose that clause 21D be now read a second time. Honorable Chair, this clause relates to declaration of state of emergency, and under Article 58 of the Constitution, the President can declare a state of emergency pursuant to any disaster that may affect the country. This allows, Honorable Chair, that the country may also focus on the disaster and that we put our resources to alleviate the effects of such disaster. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
I propose the question that new clause 21D be now read a second time. Honorable members, The Honorable Manzo.
If Honorable Chungwa could whether agree or clarify, or the chair, you know, Article 58 deals with quite a number of issues, but this particular national disaster probably could have been given what qualifies to be a national disaster, to what maybe in several counties, or is it an attack, or is it a war, or it's quite, 58 deals with quite a number of things, including a national disaster of that big magnitude. Because for it to be national, then it must cover quite a large part of the country, and hence that declaration by the president, by Gazette notice, and probably other activities be stopped so that the country can deal with that to save lives. If the two could clarify further, I thank you.
Honorable members, I now put the question that new clause 21D be now read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of our current opinion say nay? The ayes have it. Honorable members, I propose the question that new clause 21D be part of the bill. And now put the question that new clause 21D be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of our current opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New Part 4A. New Clause 27A.
Mover to move new clause 27A and a new part 4A.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I move that new Part 4A be part of the bill, and I move also that new clause 27A be part of the bill. Honorable Chair, the entire Part 4 contains provisions on the bodies and particular functions related to disaster management at the county level. It also establishes disaster management committees in each county to act as the focal point of the coordination of disaster risk management activities at the county level and to liaise with the authority, so that we are cascading this one from the national government to the county governments, and even within the county governments to have disaster management committees.
Then what you have done is very good to give the overview, but now we need to go clause by clause. So you will move new clause 27A so that we deal with it one at a time.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I move that clause 27A be now read a second time. And this clause relates to the establishment of county disaster management committees to deal with disasters at the county level.
I propose the question that new clause 27A be now read a second time. Dr. Makali?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I want to support the new clause 27A because this is very important, Honorable Chair. It is discussing the county disaster management committees in terms of membership, in terms of how long they'll be serving, which is 3 years, and in terms of what I'll call the terms of engagement, because they're going to be part-time committee members. And this is very important, Mr. Chairman, because in the past, the reason why we have been having challenges managing disasters in this country is because there's no coordinating body. So when you have a committee like this, Mr. Chairman, it is obvious that when something occurs, the chair would convene a meeting immediately, and they'll be able to come up with very clear strategies on how to address this matter. So to me, this is really right for this country, and we're on the right track. I support.
Honorable members, I now put the question that new clause 27A be now read a second time. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of our current opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I propose the question that new clause 27A be part of the bill. And now put the question that new clause 27A be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clause 27B.
Chair, move second reading.
Honorable Chair, I propose that new clause 27B be now read a second time. This clause, Honorable Chair, relates to the functions of the county committee, which basically includes advice to the county government, formulate disaster management, and also make recommendations on the plans to be put in place so that they're able to deal with a disaster at the county level.
I propose the question that new clause 27B be now read a second time. The Honorable Ishungwa.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and I rise to support Honorable Chair. As the Chair has said, part of the functions of the disaster management committee at the county level will be to establish and implement a county early warning and emergency communication strategy that is in line with the national early warning and emergency communication strategy. Honorable Speaker, you realize many of the disasters that we are faced with in Kenya, be it landslides in Elgeyo Marakwet, in Murang'a, or the perpetual floods in Budalangi, are things that if there is an early warning system, Honorable Speaker, developed both at the national and county levels, are things that we could avoid and probably avoid loss of lives and property if there is an early warning mechanism that people are warned and the communication is effectively pilfered onto the ground for people to be able to move in areas where they face a disaster or danger. And therefore, I rise to support and pray that when this law comes into effect, our county governments will move with speed to ensure that there will be no longer loss of life or property because people are not warned in advance, including what are otherwise, I don't know whether to call them man-made disasters, Honorable Speaker, because there are things that happen every now and then, and we know they are bound to happen, but we end up doing nothing, Honorable Speaker. And we have county governments, I am sure now with these committees will be able to advise their people and even advise the county governments and even the county assemblies and county executives as they prepare their budgets. You will be able to prepare a budget in Murang'a, having funds, for instance, during the rainy season, where landslides to occur, there will be resources on the ground for that people to be able to deal with that disaster. I support.
Indeed, the Honorable Ishungwa, the exciting thing about this proposal is that we will now have a reference point when these things happen where we can refer to. The Honorable Wino, Member Fondiwa.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Now I'm very happy because what I was looking for is well taken here, and I really support. M says devolve disaster management measures and structures to the sub-county and village level. That one is well done. Thank you, I support. Thank you, Chair.
Honorable members, allow me then to propose to put the question that new clause 27B be now read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I propose the question that new clause 27B be part of the bill. I now put the question that new clause 27B be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clause 27C.
Mover.
Honorable Chair, I move that new clause 27C be now read a second time. Honorable Chair, clause 27C relates to the powers of a county committee, and it's very important that the moment you create such a committee, then you give it powers to do the duties that fall under them. And basically this provides that they may receive grants, gifts, and donations towards making or addressing issues of disaster, and also undertake any activity necessary for the execution of its function, so that we are saying once the committee is in place, let us give it power to execute that mandate that they have been given. Thank you, Honorable Chair.
I propose the question that new clause 27C be now read a second time. The Honorable Oku Kaunya, member for Teso North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support. I support this new clause 27C because the powers the committee will have include powers to be able to raise money, because most of the time resources in terms of disaster management are a big question. Also, the power of the committee to access certain areas. For example, where water is required for purpose of, say, a disaster involving fire. So I support this because these powers are key to success of disaster. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I put the question that new clause 27C be now read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I propose the question that new clause 27C be part of the bill. And now put the question that new clause 27C be part of the bill. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clause 27D.
The mover, 27D.
Honorable Chair, I move that new clause 27D be now read a second time. And this clause, Honorable Chair, relates to vacation of office for members of the committee, which we have already created in the previous clauses. And this specifically means that the moment we put a committee in place, Honorable Chair, we have to get mechanisms of how people get appointed and also how they can leave that committee, and especially so when it comes to the conduct of business, and of course, when it relates to violations or otherwise of Chapter 6 of the Constitution in terms of integrity. So this is basically to provide for how one can vacate office of that committee. I thank you.
I propose the question that new clause 21D be now read a second time. 27D be now read a second time. The Honorable Jared, you don't seem to have your card. Yes, but proceed.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, that clause is very important. We have seen cases where there is no succession plan and people are left wandering in limbo. So this clause does put remedies towards that lacuna that commonly arises in situations where people vacate offices. There is no historical background of the organization, no one has the history, and the succession becomes quite a nightmare. So I really support that clause by my friend, Honorable Muhathi. Thank you.
I put the question that new clause 27D be now read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I propose the question that new clause 27D be part of the bill. I now put the question that new clause 27D be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clause 27E.
Mover 27E.
Honorable Chair, I move that new clause 27E be now read a second time. Honorable Chair, this clause relates to the conduct of business and affairs of the committee. And basically, is saying that the committee can regulate its own procedure and can also follow the provisions of the schedule as given in the bill. I thank you.
I propose the question that new clause 27E be now read a second time. And I put the question that new clause 27E be now read a second time. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now propose the question that new clause 27E be part of the bill. I move on to now put the question that new clause 27E be part of the bill. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Will as many as were contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clause 27F.
Mover 27F.
Honorable Chair, I move that new clause 27F be now read a second time. And this clause, Honorable Chair, relates to the procedure during disaster events, and specifically how a county committee may determine whether the event is a disaster and how it shall initiate and implement the county disaster management plan in place. Thank you.
I propose the question that new clause 27F be now read a second time. I put the question that new clause 27F be now read a second time. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Will as many as were contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I propose the question that new clause 27F be part of the bill. And I put the question that new clause 27F be part of the bill. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Will as many as were contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clause 27G.
Mover 27G.
Honorable Chair, I move that new clause 27G be now read a second time. And Honorable Chair, this is in relation to annual report to the County Assembly, and its provision are that a county committee should prepare and submit an annual report to the County Assembly. We are making sure that these committees are accountable, and they also indicate what activities they had during the year, and more importantly, to also give any mitigating activities that they have undertaken to address the issues of disaster. I thank you.
I propose the question that new clause 27G be now read a second time. I put the question that new clause 27G be now read a second time. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now propose the question that new clause 27G be part of the bill. I now put the question that new clause 27G be part of the bill. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New clause 27H.
Mover 27H.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair, I move that new clause 27H be now read a second time, and this, Honorable Chair, is in relation to the county committee making regulations, which are very, very important, and together with the county assembly, because they have to submit this to the county assembly, indicate which measures they have put in place to prevent disaster, any mitigation measures, disaster preparedness and response, and how they are going to make recoveries, among many other things that they are supposed to do. So this allows them to do those regulations in collaboration with the county assembly. Thank you.
I propose the question that new clause 27H be now read a second time. And I want to welcome the Honorable William Chepkut, my friend, who has been laid out for quite a bit of time. And it is this particular chair is happy to see you walking on your feet. Welcome. The Honorable Jared, member for Nyando.
Thank you, and I also welcome my brother, Honorable Chepkut, and we thank God for healing him. Honorable Speaker, this clause anchors the disaster committee in law, and it also gives the county assembly an opportunity to now look at this issue in depth, including what relates to disaster. Because again, many things happen on a daily basis, and not all of them would qualify to be a disaster. So this gives them some latitude in determining what qualifies to be a disaster, the kind of regulations that will be governing the work of committees, together with the assemblies, and this relates to the budget that they will also be working on as a committee. And I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
I now put the question that new clause 27H be now read a second time. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now propose the question that new clause 27H be part of the bill. I now put the question that new clause 27H be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of a contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. The Honorable Millie, you're also welcome.
New clause 27I.
Mover 27I.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. I heard Honorable Millie saying that we need to go to division on that one, but she didn't rise in her place, Honorable Chair, so that we can do it. Allow me also to appreciate Honorable Chepkut, who is a member of my committee, and who I can confirm is back to normal and working very actively and dealing with matters as he has always done, like a five-star general. Honorable Chair, I move that new clause 27I be now read a second time, and this clause, Honorable Chair, relates to fire disaster management system. We're saying a county shall place or shall put a fire disaster management system in place for the purposes of dealing with the disaster relating to fire, which has always in this country been such a menace. And therefore, we are giving the various provisions on how that shall be done, together with, that is a committee, together with the executive, county executive, and the county assembly of each of our counties. I thank you.
I propose the question that new clause 27I be now read a second time. We shall start with the Honorable Odhiambo Okoth, member for Suba North.
Chair, I'm not calling for division. Chair, let me just say that I support the provision. And in supporting the provision, I just want to say that one of the things that I've seen they are doing is mainstreaming gender, even in disaster preparedness and management. The only thing that unfortunately I've come late, which I had a problem with, is the composition of the main committee, which is too government heavy, but we'll have a time ahead to probably amend it later. But otherwise, I think giving the county this mandate is very, very important, especially because of the, the prevalence of disaster, especially with climate change and the effect of climate change. So I really do support that. Thanks.
The Honorable Ishungu Akimani, member for Kikuyu.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support, especially Honorable Speaker, in having a responsibility of the County Executive Committee member to be responsible in the development of fire management system in particular counties, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, if you look at the kind of disasters that we have in this country, I think the most prevalent of them is fire. Be it fire in our slums in Nairobi or the frequent fires in Gikomba, which nobody knows the cause. If the county executive member for Nairobi, for instance, knows that there are frequent fires in Gikomba market, part of the management that should be there within Gikomba is to ensure that there is a fire station that is within the proximity of Gikomba or any other places where we are susceptible to fires. Honorable Speaker, this weekend on Sunday, I witnessed, Honorable Speaker, as I went to Baringo, a very unfortunate incident between the counties of Kiambu and Nakuru counties along the Limuru, Mahio Road, actually in the Honorable Chair's constituency. Yes. A case where somebody is using a forklift to lift a gas, LPG gas tanker. And you can imagine, Honorable Speaker, they are lifting that gas tanker and there is no provision for any fire management system at the time you are lifting. And it is common sense, Honorable Speaker, that when you are lifting either an oil tanker carrying flammable material, LPG, there is likely to be a fire. Therefore, Honorable Speaker, if we had such a provision in law, that whoever is transporting such LPG gas and needs to lift it from one trailer onto another, there ought to be a fire management system at that particular point. The forklift should have been there, and there should also have been a firefighting engine that would put out LPG gas. It's only by God's grace, Honorable Speaker, that was not probably on an evening, a busy evening, like Sundays when everybody is moving back to Nairobi. You can imagine the kind of disaster we would have had to deal with. Was there traffic jam along that road, as usually the case from Mahiu going upwards to the Mutarakwa in Limuru constituency, Honorable Speaker. And therefore, it's important, Honorable Speaker, that we mandate our county executive members to ensure that there is a fire management strategy and policy in each and every county, so that they're even able to map out areas where fires are likely to occur and ensure that they also commit resources through their county assemblies to make sure that if in a particular village, Honorable Speaker, people, even the kind of housing that are in villages and our slum areas, Honorable Speaker, it's very easy to map where are we likely to have fires more than anywhere else, and also ensuring there is accessibility, especially in our slum areas, for fire engines and water hydrants to be available in particular areas. And this, Honorable Speaker, with devolution is only possible if the county executive members are able to be held to account. And with that, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Honorable Ishungwa, you will realize that common sense is not as common as it should be. The Honorable Martin Owino, member for Ndiwa.
Chair, I really want to support this because I think Honorable Chungwa is right. The most frequent disasters are fire, and B captures this very well, that there should be provision of adequate personnel and equipment. Chair, not only for the management of disasters, but I like this part, for the prevention of disasters, which sometimes are caused by illegal connections of power and all those. If we can avail that, we can invest in prevention and of course, deter most of the fires which will be in place. So I support.
I put the question that new clause 27I be now read a second time. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now propose the question that new clause 27I be part of the bill. And now put the question that new clause 27I be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Schedule.
I propose the question that the schedule be the schedule of the bill. There's no amendment to this. I therefore now put the question that the schedule be the schedule of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Will as many as of contrary opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
New schedule.
Mover.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. Honorable Chair proposed that the new schedule be part of, be read a second time. Honorable Chair, the justification to this is that we are providing for the conduct of business of county disaster management committees. Having established such committees, then it is only fair and right and procedural that we establish the procedure of conduct of business for such a committee. Thank you.
I propose the question that the new schedule be now read a second time. I see interest from the Honorable Okello, member for Nyando.
I thank you, Honorable Speaker. Just to add that this is going to give them what we would call modus operandi, the systems of work when the committee has been set up. Otherwise, it will serve no purpose enacting a committee to undertake disaster management within our counties and not giving them the mandate and the necessary tools to do so. And therefore, I support.
The Honorable Odhiambo Akoth, member for Suba North.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, I do support also for the same reasons that we then need to give them mandate to work. But Chair, I just wanted to congratulate the committee as well for the excellent amendments. I actually looked through them. The only thing that I saw missing is that we needed to provide or make linkages with the Victim Protection Act, that disaster, when you have disasters, it actually creates victimology, especially if it is man-made disasters or man-initiated, because disasters come in different forms. And in that kind of circumstance, I was hoping that you could actually have, how do you identify if there are many victims of disasters? How do you identify? So that is actually something that is missing, that, again, perhaps because now it's a bit late, we can think about in future. But otherwise, the committee did very, 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 very good amendments. Thank you.
I put the question that new schedule be now read a second time. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of our opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now propose the question that the new schedule be part of the bill. I now put the question that the new schedule be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of our opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 2.
I propose the question that clause 2 be part of the bill. Chair?
Honorable Chair, I propose that clause 2 be amended as per the order paper. And basically, this is addressing the issue of the definition of the term disaster management, which is used in the bill, which now needs to be properly defined. And that is the amendment that we are carrying in clause 2, or we are proposing in clause 2.
I propose the question that clause 2 be amended as proposed by the chair. The Honorable Oyo Onyango, member for Muhoroni.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for honoring me. I wish to reinforce what the chair has just said, because in fact, many of the disaster committees, especially in my county, you only see them when there are floods. And the level of preparedness is very wanting. Even when they come, they lack tool of trade, meaning they only exist by name. So I think that will go a long way to solve this kind of unpreparedness. Thank you.
I put the question that clause 2 be amended as proposed by the chair. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of our opinion say nay? The ayes have it. I now put the question that clause 2 as amended be part of the bill. Will as many as that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of our opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Clause 1.
I propose that clause 1 be part of the bill. I now put the question that clause 1 be part of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of our opinion say nay? The ayes have it.
Title.
I propose the question that the title be the title of the bill. I now put the question that the title be the title of the bill. Will as many of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of our opinion say nay? The ayes have it. That's the end, honorable members, for that one. I will now call upon the mover to move reporting.
Honorable Chairperson, I beg to move that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the National Disaster Management Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2019, and its approval thereof with amendments.
I put the question, which is that the committee do report to the House its consideration of the National Disaster Management Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2019, and its approval thereof with amendment. Will as many as of that opinion say aye? Aye. Will as many as of our current opinion say nay? The ayes have it. You will see from your order paper that the Public Service Commission Amendment Bill was deferred. So we shall now move to the Alcoholic Drinks Control Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 70 of 2019 by the Honorable Sylvanas Osoro. Honorable members, we shall proceed with the Alcoholic Drinks Control Amendment Bill. So we shall proceed. There are no amendments. We shall move because there are no amendments made by the mover, but the amendments proposed by the committee, and which I believe we can handle here. Yes, the Honorable Ishungwa.
Chair, you know, we are all legislators and we come here for serious business, Honorable Chair. And you see, Chair, ordinarily I'm never here at 9. I would be on top of a car somewhere now. But I had to be here. Of course, I would be working from on top of a car. Now I had to come and work on, from this desk, Honorable Chair. And it's only fair, and I think, Honorable Chair, the Speaker has ruled before, the substantive Speaker, that on private member bills, Thank you, Chair. I wanted your attention because the substantive Speaker, Honorable Chair, I think has communicated to the House before that on private member bills, if the member, the proposer or the mover of the bill is not available in the House, then the rest of us have no business conducting business on their behalf. And Honorable Chair, it would only be fair because if we were to proceed, I am seated here to report to the House who we report, because the Chair may not be able to report on behalf of the mover, and I therefore want to move, Honorable Speaker, that we do drop that particular bill, Honorable Speaker. And I can see the Chair is vehemently supporting me.
Honorable members, I agree that now that the Honorable Silvana Osoro is not in the House, I think in line with the directions of the Speaker, that when such business is reached and called out and the member is not there, then the business should be dropped, and it goes to the bottom of the pile of the business that awaits as members' private bills. And that is exactly the fate that the business that is listed under the name of Silvana Osoro will now attract. So I therefore direct that the business listed as order number 11, Roman 3, the Alcoholic Drinks Control Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 70 of 2019, is hereby dropped, and it goes to the bottom of the list of bills awaiting consideration. So, honorable members, will allow me then to go back so that we can deal with the reporting on the National Disaster Management Authority bill. We will consider the reporting of the National Disaster Management Authority bill. I call upon the chairperson to move reporting.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to report that the Committee of the Whole House has considered the National Disaster Management Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 10 of 2019, and approved the same with amendments.
The mover, the Honorable Ishungwa.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to move that the House do agree with the committee in the said report. I also request Honorable Millie Odhiambo to second the motion for agreement with the report of the Committee of the Whole House.
The Honorable Odhiambo.
Thank you. I do second and congratulate Honorable Chungwa for a good job and for the committee for also an excellent job.
Honorable members, I now propose the question, which is that the House do agree with the committee in the said report.
Put the question.
Honorable members, I direct that the next necessary steps in this particular proposal will be undertaken when the matter will be set down on the order paper for the finalization thereof. And I want to thank the Honorable Ishungwa for this wonderful bill that he has brought to this House. I think this country needs these proposals and to be made into law. I think it will be useful to our country. So the next necessary steps will be undertaken when the matter will be set down on the order paper. The Honorable Ishungwa, all right, you will have a minute to say what you... The Honorable Ishungwa?
Honorable Speaker, I think everybody understands the fate that has fallen the next stage. But allow me, Honorable Speaker, to thank the chair of the committee and in absentia, Honorable Speaker, and posthumously to thank the former chair of the committee, the late Honorable Paul Koinange, because as you realize, Honorable Speaker, this is a bill that I drafted in the year 2019. And indeed, the Honorable Paul Koinange, the late Honorable Paul Koinange, was instrumental in fast-tracking the processing of this bill to the second reading. And we engaged with the committee before his passing on. And the week before, 2 weeks before he was hospitalized, Honorable Speaker, I had raised the matter with him. And that's why I want to posthumously thank the late Honorable Paul Koinange for his hand in being able to fast-track this very important bill for our country. And also to thank the current chair, the Honorable Mwadi, my neighbor from Limuru, and all the members of the committee for having fast-tracked the third reading. And I think, Honorable Chair, the leader of majority will now appreciate what was described by the substantive speaker as a moment of the House going crazy when we sought to shock the House Business Committee, Honorable Speaker, in being able to prioritize private members' bills. Because you see some of the bills that were being held without coming to the floor of the House were indeed very critical bills. And I thank also the House Business Committee that the moment of the House going crazy did jot them to action, and they have been able to also fast-track many of these bills to come before the House. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. I direct that we move on to the next business.
Order number 12, the Community Health Workers Bill, National Assembly Bill number 30 of 2020, second reading, resumption of debate.
Honorable members, this particular business, I had attracted the participation of 22 members at the last break. The Honorable Gogo Achieng was on the floor and she had a balance of 9 minutes. Is she in the House? She's not in the House. So therefore the chance goes to the Honorable Oyo Onyango, member from Horoni.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, again for honoring me with this time. Mr. Honorable Speaker, I want to express my feelings about the experience I have on the ground, that the community health workers are very important, given that most of the health centers and the hospitals are far away from where many people live, and these people are supposed to be prepared very well for the challenges that they go through every day in their working life. I want to, now that health is involved, want to call upon the county mandarins, county chiefs, the governors, and those chief officers who are concerned with this issue to take it up very seriously and make sure that these staff are given requisite training, and they're also given tools of trade to enable them to go about their businesses properly. That what is also lacking is that in most cases they don't lack tool of trade, and medicine is also lacking in government hospitals. Most since the devolution when the hospitals were taken over by the governors. You find that necessary medicine, including even as simple as common Panadol, are missing in hospitals, and each time that these people are going about their businesses, they have to prescribe drugs to poor people in the ground who are supposed to go and buy. And after they have bought them, sometimes these people are moved to, because they are also few. We also want the county government to increase the number so that it becomes, the officers become available within a short distance of where they're supposed to work. And this if done well and the county government takes it seriously, it should go a long way in improving the health care of our people. With those remarks, I support.
The Honorable Kaunya Oku, member for Teso North. It appears like the Honorable Kaunya is not in the house. Honorable members, that would mean that the Honorable Luyaya Misi, the members for Sabote, and as the member for Sabote contributes, the mover should be preparing to reply.
Thank you, Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to contribute to this bill. From the onset, I support. Mr. Speaker, community health workers are integral professionals in our society, right from the local level, community level. They are in touch with the community, they understand the language, the environs, they understand the people, and they're able to deal with the issues that arise health-wise on first hand. So it is important that these very important professionals in our society are regulated and entrenched in our government as professionals, recognized both at the national level and the county levels. We have heard most of them working mostly unpaid, some working as volunteers, some just getting small tokens or recognitions, but the work they do go beyond what we give them as a society. So it is important that this be part of the appreciation to these very important professionals who have saved life. They have always a first point of call whenever health problems arises around the community. So it is important, Mr. Speaker, that, and I want to congratulate the mover of this bill for coming up with this important bill to recognize our very important health workers to be entrenched in our professionals. I support, Mr. Speaker.
The mover to reply.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In reply to all that has been said, I want to thank all the members who contributed to this bill. And Mr. Speaker, they did it positively, meaning this is a reality. In our healthcare delivery strata, level 1 is the first point of call. Because, Mr. Speaker, level 1 is where we have people who are overwhelmed by the situation, is where we have people who are ignored, is where we have people who are self-medicating because they are poor, they cannot even afford medicine. This is where we have health decisions made. They're all in level 1 in a household. This is where we have people who are calling shots, the grandmas and babas and mamas. Level 1 is where we have health education, Mr. Speaker, telling people what to do and what not to do. This is where we can have also basic screening and encouragement. And so you have to move now to the hospital. Mr. Speaker, level 1 is where we can have support system. A reminder, it is time to take your medication. And this is where we have disease prevention, advices, health education on nutrition and sanitation so that we prevent diseases. This all happen in the households level, which is recognized in our public health policy, but it's not being effected well because of what I'm going to say ahead here. This is where we have early disease detection, because, Mr. Speaker, the reason why healthcare cost is so high is that we miss detecting diseases at a household level so that intervention can be swift and effective, so that when we refer them, they are not under disabilities. The Speaker, level 1, even expecting mothers, this is where they encourage that you need to have 4 clinics during your pregnancies. And some are even escorted by community health workers to ensure that that is done. All this happens at this lower level. Mr. Speaker, also the health and support system. Biomedical intervention is not the answer for treatment. We have to have support system. And I said earlier, somebody who come and check, have you taken your meds? Have you taken full dose? The Speaker, in Rwanda, those who are taking ARVs, they don't take themselves. They are given by community health workers. And the drug resistance have really gone low because drugs are taken on time and full dose are given. We were talking about first aid. If we don't give first aid at that level, people come to higher levels like level 2, 3, 4, even to the tertiary level in conditions that are debilitating. So this is the place where we, if empowered, if equipped, as we envisage in the bill, and if motivated, the response will be swift and many injuries will be deterred. But allow me also, Mr. Speaker, to dismiss some notions which are coming around this speaker, around this bill. Mr. Speaker, one of them is the county governments argue that if you invest in community health workers, it will be expensive. That is not true. In fact, it is the reverse. If we intervene earlier in disease identification, detections, in primary vaccinations, in fact, we save a lot in the tertiary care because admissions will not be there, advanced cases will not be there. We would have dealt with them at the lower level. There is also a notion that if we organize community health workers, because we are creating a council for them, they will be strong, they will have CBAs. Mr. Speaker, the right to associate and even picketing is in the Constitution. And in fact, we will reap more from an organized community health workers force than if they are disorganized, because they can even still do that in their present status. So that is not true. If we organize them, they have their rights, they have their communication system, they will be more useful to our healthcare delivery system than the status they are now. The third one is if we can have standards, because the council, if created, will have training standards, will acknowledge them, register them, and provide oversight. If we have that, Mr. Speaker, then we will have a very motivated, empowered, regulated, acknowledged community health workers with the standards across the country. That means that community health worker in Dewa is the same as in Mandera in terms of knowledge, equipment, and remuneration. Right now, these community health workers are paid differently with the different commodities. Some are given bicycles, some 5,000, some 2,000, some are not paid at all. So there's chaos, and yet it's a very important workforce in our healthcare delivery system. So, Mr. Speaker, in reply, I want to say that if we equip, we motivate, and reward these community health workers and a council who will be organizing all this, then the gap in the human resource for health will be reduced. Then, and also the advanced cases that progresses because of missed cases or mismanaged conditions will also reduce. even referral to our tertiary care system, level 6, will also drastically reduce, or they will be dealing now with specialized cases, which they should do when the primary healthcare system is strong. So I want to thank those who have contributed to this, and the next section, there will be some amendment, which is good, so that community health workers are identified, selected, and trained, and they live in the community and serve in that community where they live. With those, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reply.
You have done well. I direct that the next necessary steps in regard to that business to be undertaken when it will be set down in the order paper again. I direct that we move on to the next business in the order paper.
Order number 13, the Poverty Eradication Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 13 of 2020, second reading.
The Honorable John Waruke is not in the chamber, so the bill is dropped. I direct that we move to the next business.
Order number 14, the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 20 of 2020, second reading.
The Honorable Patrick Wainaina, member for Thika, is not in the chamber. I direct that that business is dropped and suffers the fate that the Speaker directed that such bills will suffer. Next business.
Order number 15, the Sexual Offences Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2020, second reading.
The Honorable Gathoni Wamushomba, member for Kiambu. She's not in the House. That bill suffers the same fate and is dropped. Next business.
Order number 16, the Insurance Professionals Registration Bill, National Assembly Bill number 25 of 2020, second reading.
The Honorable Benjamin Washiali, not in the House. That bill is dropped also. Next business.
Order number 17, the Health Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 28 of 2020, second reading.
The Honorable Alice Wahome, member for Kandara. She's not in the House. That bill is dropped and suffers the same fate and moves to the bottom of the pile. Next business.
Order number 18, the Higher Education Loans Board Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 29 of 2020, second reading.
The Honorable Gideon Keter, nominated member, is not in the House. This bill also suffers the same fate and moves to the bottom of the pile. Next business.
Order number 19, the Institute of Social Work Professionals Bill, National Assembly Bill number 31 of 2020, second reading.
The Honorable Joshua Kimilu, member for Kaiti, is not in the House, suffers the same fate. It's dropped. Yes, what is out of order, the Honorable Odhiambo?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, going by the trend, I would just want to urge the House Business Committee to also learn people who are always in the House. I am here, I have 2 bills, and we are dropping all bills. I would have moved mine, because from the way we are going, actually, we probably are going to run into headwinds. We will not have any business. Yet there are people who are serious who can do business.
Right.
As we know when to go on the trucks and when to be in the House. So the ones who are busy in the trucks, really, we should not be giving them priority to be campaigning when us, we are very serious to do business in the House.
Well, the Honorable Millie, noted. Next business.
Order number 20, the Birth and Death Registration Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 32 of 2020, second reading.
The Honorable Martha Wangari, member for Gilgil. Not in the House, the bill is dropped. Next business.
Order number 21, the Public Procurement and Asset Disposal Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 34 of 2020, second reading.
The Honorable Richard Tongi is not in the House, the bill is dropped. The Honorable Mohammed Sheikh, member for Wajir South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm just raising a point that it would have been very important that the House business considers the bills that have been there, waiting to be brought to the floor of the House for over a year now. Some of these bills have just been left reluctantly. Yet, at this particular time in the House, these bills that are being read out, the people who started on are not there. So some of our bills are just rotting off on the shelves to be prepared to arrive on the floor of the House. So there is a lethargy and slowness that's happening actually up there. So we want to see some of our bills. My bill on Auditor General is yet to come here, and it has been started in 2020. We've been chasing it, and yet it seems to be slowed down. The committee has passed. It has gone to the legal office, and we don't see it here. So some of these things need to be fast-tracked. Thank you.
The Honorable Sheikh, it's noted. Next business. The next order.
Order number 22, the Alcoholic Drinks Control Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 35 of 2020, second reading.
The Honorable Danson Mwakuwoma is not in the House, the bill is dropped. Next business. Next business.
Order number 23, the Public Debt Management Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 36 of 2020, second reading.
The Honorable Sakwa Bunyasi. The Honorable Sakwa Bunyasi. This is a very diligent member of this House. And he has an opportunity now. I know he's been very, very passionate about this particular business.
Indeed, Mr. Speaker, I must say that despite all of that passion and preparedness, it coming now as an element of surprise, thanks to the unfortunate absence of the people ahead of me, so I hadn't even carried my notes. But, Mr. Speaker, sir, I have the opportunity now, and let me go ahead. We have a bill that has been with us for quite a long time, but be that as it may, the intention of the Public Debt Management Authority Bill is to create an institutional framework that will manage the debt chain from the time the debt is created, when there is a shortfall between revenue and expenditure, and then you have to borrow to bridge the gap. So to deal with it, with the chain debt effectively, you have first to deal with, before you even get to the revenue, you have to deal with the expenditure, because that you have greater control of than you have over revenue. And to manage the expenditure, you have to choose carefully what enters the expenditure basket. You have to choose carefully among the projects that enter the pipeline at that point. And so what the Debt Management Authority Bill is doing is to create this institutional framework where we shall formalize once again, as we used to do long back, the criteria for admission of projects in our pipeline.
Go on record that you wish the bill to be read a second time.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir.
Yes.
I stand up to propose that the Public Debt Management Authority Bill be read a second time. And I henceforth now begin to raise the highlights of what it is that are in the bill. I think the bill itself is quite comprehensive. We've taken a lot of time over it. And as I was saying, we are in a tight situation now with debt. And this debt is created over time when there is a disparity between expenditures and revenues. And ours have risen to a point where the proportion of debt to GDP is nearly 100% now. We don't know what the latest numbers are going to be. Officially, I'm told that it's about 8.8, that our total debt, which is the public, local and foreign debt, is 8.8. But that excludes pending bills, which are debt, because that's debt that to be paid. And it does not include contingent liabilities. So if you add those, we are probably above the ceiling of 9 trillion. But even if you took the official figure that Treasury is using of 8.8, and which we know is way, way below, out of GDP of 11 trillion, it's about 80%, a bit more than 80%. But when you add the pending bills, you add the contingent liabilities, which are liabilities incurred by institutions that are para-government or government, like parastatals and so on, the debt levels exceed GDP. And what does that mean? There are many countries around the world, now some countries around the world where debt exceeds GDP, but there are special ones. Countries like the US, they have, most debt is designated in the dollar. So their monetary policy can take care of the debt obligations by the way they expand the creation of the dollar. And that debt service for them is a little lighter because there's no aspect of the activities that is not taxed. Collection rates are better. The export component of the economy is significant, like that of Japan. It exceeds the GDP. It's almost twice the GDP. So they are able to service this debt in many, many different ways. We in Kenya now have reached a point, as of December, the figures were that for every 100 shillings collected in revenue, about 73.4, say 74 shillings, goes to debt repayment. That does not include the broad definition of debt. Contingent liabilities can one day become real debt. Pending bills must be paid. And therefore, if you consider that, we probably now will be looking at 90 shillings to every 100 shillings collected going towards debt payment. What does that mean? We leave a very narrow window to finance all our other expenditures that we need. So what I was saying is that first, I wanted the House to appreciate how debt occurs. Debt occurs simply because we have a shortfall of revenues versus expenditure. Revenues are mostly through taxation, although you can get grants and other forms of inflows to count towards revenue, but the principal source of the revenues we expect to finance development come from taxation. There's a limit how much you can tax. So you can't begin fiddling with the revenue before you have looked at your expenditure. And therefore, the expenditure, apart from the recurrent expenditures that come from salaries and other operating expenditures, the development component of the expenditure comes from how you choose the projects that enter the pipeline. Some people have been concerned that if you begin talking about rationalizing the debt chain, you are trying to block projects there or block somebody's project. No, we are trying to ensure that there is a relationship between the kind of expenditure and the kind of financing that you do for it. First and foremost, that don't accept projects that come into the pipeline whose returns are low if the rate of return is a relevant measure by which to use. And it's not always the economic and financial that people worry about, it's also the social. It must have some benefit to society, either the social level, the financial level, and of course the economic rate of return as well over time, so that you put in the pipeline projects whose returns will exceed the costs of it. If it's a borrowed facility, it will exceed the cost of borrowing. If it is a facility that has such a social benefit, it will benefit people more than it would inconvenience them. It will ease their passage through life. It might be things that, for example, improve healthcare. It might be changes that improve one aspect or other of the death rate or that kind of thing. So you measure that by the extent to which society is going to gain when life expectancy is increased, economic activity is enhanced, and the returns therefore are higher. So the debt management bill, which entails the creator authority, is saying, let us look at this debt chain right from the beginning. And you can also look alongside it, you can look at the revenue side. How well is revenue collected? We get a few surprises in this country. For example, in 2020, the year when COVID hit us, and the year when the country was most worried about the performance of the economy, looks like the revenue collection was at its peak. It was better than it had been the year before, and it continued to be quite good since. It still surprises me how that's happened. Well, be that as it may, it shows that either we had been understating the revenue levels, and because of the pressure of a contracting economy, we were then forced to declare more of it, or something else happened in the area of efficiency in the tax authority to collect not just relatively more than the year before, but absolutely higher than the year before. So you can look at revenue side and see how best you can improve in efficiency in raising it, but the most practical way in which governments do it, and this house is part of it, is when you raise taxes. And you remember the debate we had particularly last year, when there was there was actually a tax rebellion, that the taxes are too high, the economy is not performing, you're taxing us more, you're putting pressure on households, and that therefore life becomes unlivable. And I'm glad that the government did listen, and they began to look at it again. We looked at petroleum more recently and so on. There are many other dimensions of that. So revenue has a potential, but it has its own limitation. Be that as it may, the truth of the matter is that over time, our expenditures have exceeded our revenues, and we have had to borrow. And this house, let me say right at the beginning, has been part of it every time. And the reason is, when we pass our budgets with the budget deficit, we rarely stop to look at the deficit as an issue. We raise it in our deliberations, it's pointed out and discussed, but we normally move on. The only time we have, the country has a deficit, the difference between expenditure and revenue, that is then focused on is when you get external agencies like the IMF insisting that you have to control the level of deficit over time. But you ourselves have been somewhat loose about it. We pass a budget, and then we say, let's see what the finance bill is going to say in terms of tax revenue. But we know that, in fact, they will still not be able to raise sufficient revenues to cover the expenditure of the budget. That has turned out to be big. And the higher the debt you have, and the higher the payment you have to make, the greater the sacrifice you must make in financing essential services. We have health services in crisis, for example, at the moment. We have unemployment, huge unemployment. It's a big crisis. So the capacity of government to provide support to the unemployed, the capacity of government to provide schemes that are going to be labor utilizing in order to be able to ease off the burden that people have got. The capacity of government, for example, as government has done in the COVID days, to provide COVID relief programs that would largely offset the deleterious effects of COVID, is limited because you don't have the resources. Now you wait each time for donors to give grants and so on. You put yourself in a freezer mode, which constricts how much you can do, how much you can spend. And indeed, you get to a high debt level like ours, the country is then essentially in a freezer mode. And we're trying to work this out over time. So what do we do? So we are suggesting that the planning part be incorporated clearly in a chain that we know is a higher value chain. The borrowing part be such that there is full disclosure to this house, which under the law is what it should do. It must not be partial, all aspects of it. Some loans have aspects that are clearly government to government, others have commercial components, and I've learned that there are technical arguments being used why the commercial bit is not quite entirely a matter for government to worry about, but they are all obligations that are guaranteed or implicitly guaranteed, and therefore they become part of the sovereign responsibility for making sure that those obligations are met. I can assure this House that if you have a purely commercial arrangement for which those commercial entities have any public component and you don't pay the money, there are ways in which they can begin to constrict your ability to reach out to the international community and be able to get any additional resources. They push you towards a cash and carry corner, which most governments are very uncomfortable being into, and therefore a nation is then obligated to meet its external obligations. So it doesn't matter the nature of the obligations. So one of the components of the bill is to say that there would be full disclosure to the House, and an appeal I would make to the House that in getting that full disclosure, there must be careful scrutiny, because once it passes, we can't simply blame government for borrowing, because here we are gatekeepers by law, and we could do that. And if we did that, in fact, it's possible that some of the obligations would not have been incurred. But we don't get that full disclosure. So part of the proposals in the bill is that there will be full disclosure in, before obligations are actually incurred or finally incurred. There is a level to which government must proceed to discuss and so on, to sort of be sure there is a facility coming, to have an idea of its boundaries, the interest rates, the repayment periods, and any other obligations there might be. That bit government must be allowed to do, Treasury must be allowed to do. They may even initial the draft as coming to some understanding, but you must get parliamentary approval before it's finally done. If you come a year after it's done, you cannot undo it. So we give authority back to the House that that be done, and that presentation of the debt situation be done explicitly so that there's a focus on it, and not as a technical paper that's laid on the table and we simply note it and move on, because it's put us in a bad place. How do we do this then? The way we are proposing that we would do it is that we would set up, the authority would set up, the bill is proposed to set up an authority whose membership will come from senior levels, or people who understand public finance, very senior levels, or people who are experts in public finance. And with the chairman, that is a proposal that was disputed a bit in the discussions, with the chairman being appointed by the president and proposed by Parliament and appointed by the president. How do we finance this new institution? People are concerned about new institutions at a time when they are trying to reduce the public wage bill and so on. We've looked at it carefully. As it stands now, the way to pay the debt, the domestic debt, for example, the way monies are raised to finance debt, to create debt, and sometimes to finance that debt, is through an intermediation by the central bank on an agency basis, meaning the central bank issues paper on the market on behalf of the Treasury. It's not part of the work of the central bank, but it was the best agency to do so under the circumstances. And the charges now are that they will charge 1.5% of what they raise up to a maximum of 3 billion. Now, the costings by Treasury on what the authority would cost once it's in full swing would be about 1.5 billion a year. So in effect, it would not exceed the current charge that's been put up for those activities by the central bank. There would in fact be some net amount that the Treasury would remain with, which can then be spread around to finance additional activities. So the cost of the authority is not a major consideration. But what is also needed is to formalize the capacity in the debt office in the Treasury. There is a debt office, it's just an office, is to give them some autonomy in analyzing what, first of all, in keeping accurate records on what the debt is. They are not, the debt figures come out differently depending on for what purpose they're being brought out. So there is a problem there. But secondly, and perhaps even more importantly, that there is a very poor link between what the macroeconomic divisions of the Treasury do, those people who give us these long-term projections, who decide for us that the maximum you can do in debt is that you're going to pay, rather that in debt size, in budget size, sorry, is like 3 trillion, 3.6 trillion as we had last year, or the lower figure of 3.3 that we might have this year. Now, this is not properly incorporated in the macroeconomic framework. The people, these decisions become administrative, and what has happened, the macroeconomic framework has to be developed around that. And that's why the negotiations with institutions like the IMF become quite stiff, because they don't have all the kind of pressure that our domestic departments have got in the Treasury. This authority would stand out a little bit and begin to advise government about what's an optimal level of debt the government can carry. It's not going to stop borrowing. Borrowing will always be there, but you must do sustainable borrowing. And sustainable borrowing means, for example, if you have a project that will take 10 to 15 years, which happens in public sector projects, before benefits can flow, or for any other period that you have, you must then borrow against it in a way that it will begin to be paid when the benefit streams flow. What has happened, because of the pressure, particularly because of our emphasis on infrastructure development, which is very capital intensive, and the need to get money is in good time to do it, we have sometimes incurred debt and then have had repayments over periods that don't relate to the benefit flow of the project. So you have to raise money now from other sources, increasingly, to be able to finance it, in the expectation that in the long run, when the benefits come on stream, then they will pay. What would be an optimum way of doing it is that to say, yes, you can incur debt, but the debt management, the debt repayment, must relate to the benefit stream of the project. If it's a 15-year project come to full maturity, payments must begin to rise to the maximum levels when the benefit stream is now already coming into the economy. Two, the basic things, for example, we have had challenges around the Eurobonds and so on. Nothing wrong with borrowing money from the Eurobond or any other for that matter. But there are basic accounting challenges that we had. We had doubts how much of the money had been incurred and processed in accordance with the PFM Act, which requires that all those funds first come into the country, they go into the consolidated fund, and from there is when you service this debt. You can't serve it from abroad. That has management and transparency issues, which on some of our loans have not even been resolved. This, we want to clean up that and make sure that it conforms to the law fully, so that we don't have any of those doubts that we talked about. Now, furthermore, we get to a point now where we have an agency that is a semi-autonomous agency. It's an agency of government, but in the way it operates on a day-to-day basis, it's able to make judgments, conclusions, and analyses that are not going to be edited, they're not going to be managed or approved by the CS Treasury. He will simply receive the recommendations, for example, on what should be the maximum debt, because the economy can only do so much. And that judgment can only be done after an independent person has looked at the projected performance of the economy and then said the size of budgets we can have in the medium term, in the next 3 years, in the years of the next 3, should not exceed such and such a level. I know we do get a medium-term debt strategy, but if you ask anybody in this House, except perhaps those who sit in the Budget Committee and glance at it, it's just attached, it's not the focus of discussion. You find quite immediately that the size of the budget you're looking at has exceeded the budget policy statement ceiling that had been proposed. And you'll be told it's just a statement. It can be adjusted. Sure enough, it can be, but not simply to make it look like it is justifying the budget size. You look at the medium-term framework, you find that the budget numbers don't relate to what had been expected. So the mechanism we have set up to be able to manage debt are then easily ignored almost immediately. So what we are trying to do is to establish the authoritative process by which these are respected. A good economy is the best gift you can give to the weak in the society. A good economy where inflation is managed, where resources go where they're intended, for example, to the poor, to the, say, marginalized regions, and they do go and they're released in accordance with what is supposed to be done, that the health services work, that water supply is done, which means the resources that we earn go to priority areas. We do need roads, yes, of course. We must have roads. But you have then a choice on the major infrastructure to decide which one, where, and what kind of benefits it will have, but above all, ensure that debt repayment from those kinds of investments is such that it will originate and be met by the benefits that are projected. These benefits can be calculated. Now, if we don't do that, then we run into the kind of problems to where we are now. So what this bill is actually saying is that let us first account for our debt properly. Let us rationalize what debt we get when, on the basis of the benefits that can accrue to that investment that we are doing. It does not a priori. I remember that when I went to the Finance Committee, At one time, a colleague asked me, he said, so you mean you want to pass this bill so that the 63 billion shilling project that is in my area, that is a dam project, apparently it was, will not be incurred? I said, no, to the contrary. It means that in looking at the 63 billion shilling investment that is proposed, which of course, that's a very major one, it will have an intergenerational impact now as well as many generations in the future. When you incur its debt and you look for borrowing, you must look for funds that are also long-term, so that as that project matures and is paid for, the economy is already getting the benefits for which it was set up. You just can't close your eyes and say, this is our turn to get a project, therefore we shall get it, when in fact we do not have, it's not been linked to the benefit stream that would be. And to do that, you do need to get a good feasibility study, clearly to establish the costs and benefits, but also to look at the social consequences. When these kinds of parameters are required and are actually applied, then and they meet the threshold, the projects can enter into the pipeline. So there's nothing very technical about that. Now, for the things that we've already incurred now, we were promised each budget cycle, because the CS Treasury is under pressure to make sure that it's passed. He has promised that he's going to negotiate debt. When they moved the ceiling, borrowing ceiling from 7.2 trillion to 9, the argument was that the additional funds would provide the headroom for the Treasury to be able to negotiate with the donors on debt rationalization. Some of that may have been done. It's not adequate yet. We do need to get to a point where our long-term debt is as low cost as we can get it on the market. And for debts that are very high and commercial, we must find ways in which we can dilute that amount by getting cheaper and cheaper debt on the market, so that on the average cost of this borrowing is much lower, consistent with the level of our economy. The level of our economy is still struggling. We are no longer the least poor, among the least poor countries. You remember that our economy was rebased. It was calculated on a different basis. So we are a middle-income country, albeit perhaps in the lower spectrum of that middle-income country, but we are a middle-income country. So we don't get all the benefits on the market that go to the ultra-poor among the countries. So lowering our cost of debt, therefore, becomes one way in which we ease off the burden of taxation on our people. People talk about that every child now born, and this number is vary a bit depending on how you look at debt, but you get scare figures that for every Kenyan, including a child born now, the debt is about 138,000, maybe it's even 140,000 shillings. And for people whose average income is barely, how many dollars do we have a year? It's now, I think, we are at about $1,000. That is averaging out the billionaires against those that have nothing. So those are averages. They don't tell us very much. But it just shows that the obligations we are imposing on us, on ourselves, on society, among all of the people, the very poor, ultra-poor, and the rich, where the rich do not matter too much in this, but the ultra-poor do. The burden we place on society now is very heavy. So we want to ease off that so that part of that debt is moved into future generations, because after all, they're also going to benefit from the basis of these good projects that we would have agreed to as we invest. Now, there are many technical details in it. We have considered these provisions. The PFM Act had 3 major paragraphs in it, and what we are doing now is we are having a whole bill, a standalone bill, that will not take away all of the PF, no, it will just take away the aspects pertaining to debt incurring and debt management. It will still make reference to those in terms of the need for good principles, but this now will lay out in much greater detail what these principles should be, what these processes should be, and what the reporting mechanism should be. And we want this mechanism to be reported in a way that the House can appreciate fully, but importantly, because when the House appreciates fully, through explanation, through clear documentation, the Wananchi also follows. We are followed in our discussions a lot now than ever before. And that they then must be conscious of what it is that we are getting into and what it implies for them. Because if we don't do that, it comes out as a surprise, then you get a level of resistance of the type that we got. So, Mr. Speaker, sir, I want to conclude my presentation by my prayer to the House that they should have a chance to look at the debt bill again. It's been a while, and I can assure you that despite the fact that it's been on the order paper, I don't think members will have had a chance to look through it. So when it comes up for debate, Mr. Speaker, I would urge the members to think about the implications of releasing the amount of debt to enable this economy to invest, in addition to physical infrastructure that we're doing, to invest in areas that have shorter-term yields and provide money in people's pockets. The frustration of the people of Kenya, despite the allure and despite the beauty of the infrastructure that we are doing, is that it's not leading to incomes for them, neither now nor in the short term or even the near term. In the longer term, yes, we shall get a better functioning city in Nairobi. We shall get a country that's functioning better because of the highways that are being built in different parts of this country. But it must be, remember, that people are living today. People can't get children to school. It reminds me what has happened in my own county in Busia, in a school called Otimong in Teso South, in which a child was sent home, I don't know if it was 6-year-old or 7-year nursery child, to bring 100 shillings. And the kid, while crossing the road from the school, which is along the road, was knocked to death for 100 shillings. We are supposed to have free education. Why would such a kid be sent home? Part of it, why this money is being charged to the children, is that there are deficits met, which the schools consider legitimate, which the government cannot meet. The government can't meet those. Part of the reason, and a major reason, that increasingly it's being squeezed because of debt service. So this is the time not only to be impressed by the big infrastructure, but to say, how about the ability of this economy to create jobs today, to create incomes today, and what's the distribution of those opportunities across the country, across the different demographic groups of the people. That's how you manage an economy. It's a delicate balance. You can't say you can't do infrastructure, you must do infrastructure, because you'll be caught off flat-footed tomorrow. But that balance is extremely important. This public debt management authority will be one way in which we'll do that. And finally, I want to urge the House that as we look at debt, and debt has, let's say, 3 components. One component, the external debt to which we borrow, which is derived from borrowing. And that's why we look at sometimes bilateral relations with countries like China and others. And we say that's the enemy. We are the culprit ourselves. We have to look at it. We can manage it from our end. We can do it better from our end. So the amount of debt we incur out there is important. It can be analyzed because by way of what risks it produces. And as I conclude, there's another component of it, which is the amount we borrow domestically. We raise this money in the domestic market. If you borrow too much, the private sector has no money. So that also must be managed. And the third one are pending bills. We don't pay our bills because this is a big brother. You can refuse to pay, and it will take a while before anybody can take you to court. That's also debt, and it's very huge indeed. In fact, this domestic part on pending.
The Honorable Sakwa, I'll allow you 2 minutes to wind up.
The amount that we are incurring domestically and refusing to pay and ignoring stubbornly is running also into trillions. It's probably 1.8 trillion. I don't have the latest figure. If you add that alone to the official figure of the amount of public debt we have got, which is, they're saying it's 200 billion headroom below the 9 trillion, we are already beyond 11 trillion, beyond the GDP figures that we have got. And we just don't include in our numbers. So when you say it's 8.8, they don't include the pending bills, which are really domestic debt that we have forcefully borrowed by not paying. So here is a chance for us to help government to streamline, to help government to clean up, so that we, Parliament, are part of it. And remember that we, Parliament, have been part of the problem because we have approved without clear focus on those deficits, partly because the projects that benefit us in our own regions or not, or for any other reason, are included. But now it's time for us to say, how much can we manage? It is the same problem we have with the domestic private household debt in this country. That's not the subject of this discussion. But sooner or later, somebody should come up with a way you can control that. Because what happens? When you are unable to borrow, you have fleeced on 10 lines that you got. You have borrowed from every relative, and then you have a sick person. You have a child who is in school. Where are you going to get it from? You sell land, you sell your assets, and you become poorer over time. And that's the same thing. Government can mortgage its assets. Government can mortgage its freedom as a sovereign nation, because it must comply and it must then be very obedient to the providers. Because if you aren't, they can squeeze the tap. There are real costs involved in this, and I really think that this Public Debt Management Authority bill becomes one opportunity for this nation to redeem itself, for us to urge government with the powers we've got to look at it once more. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move.
The Honorable Bunyasi, who is seconding?
Fully.
The Honorable Dawood?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I wish to second this bill by Honorable Sakwa Bunyasi, our next governor for Busia. Mr. Speaker, the Public Debt Authority bill, which Honorable Sakwa has brought, is a very important authority because, Mr. Speaker, as has been alluded by the Honorable Member, that this country, we suffer from a debt crisis. Mr. Speaker, many a time we've been told that our debt has not reached the limit. Mr. Speaker, in the last term of Parliament, I don't remember if, Mr. Speaker, you were in the Finance Committee from the start, from 2013. But I remember we were with Mr. Honorable Sakwa in that committee. And at that time, the debt in 2013 was at 1.8 trillion shillings. And at that time, Treasury brought a request to increase the debt by 600 billion to make it 2.4 trillion shillings. But Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, what happened during that time is the committee in its wisdom increased, instead of the 600 billion to be increased for the debt, they agreed to increase the debt by an extra 1.2 trillion. So that pushed up our debt ceiling to about 3 trillion. Along the way, Mr. Speaker, as time went on, the Treasury thought it was not the right way to go about it, and the debt started increasing, and then they said, now we need to peg it to the GDP. Mr. Speaker, when that was, I think that was the biggest mistake we did, because as soon as we started to peg our debt to the GDP was increased, was rebased. Our GDP was rebased, where our GDP figure was brought to 9 trillion. And then we were told, now if it is 9 trillion, then we can even go a debt of up to 50% of the GDP. Mr. Speaker, as we are talking today, I believe it was in 2020, when we were asked to increase this debt ceiling to 9 trillion shillings, Mr. Speaker. And that 9 trillion, at that time when we were told, the debt at that time was less, because I was in that committee, and I believe even you, Mr. Speaker, were in that committee, where many of the members did not agree with that increase in debt. Mr. Speaker, even at that time, we put the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury on the spot to give us the true level of debt. And he told us we were less than at 7 trillion, and we will reach the 9 trillion figure in the year 2023 or 2024. Mr. Speaker, I'm afraid right now, as we are speaking, if all the debt is brought on board, we have exceeded 9 trillion which has been passed by this parliament. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Sakwa has proposed a deletion of Section 58 of the Central Bank Act, where it says that the Cabinet Secretary would approve any borrowing, external borrowing by the county governments. Mr. Speaker, I would want to even him to think about it, and maybe at the third reading we do some changes to his bill, because even in his bill, I think it is number 44, where he has proposed that the county government should be allowed to borrow, and there would be securities by the county government. But Mr. Speaker, I do not know what securities county government would give, and they would borrow, and if they borrow, they have not even paid pending bills, Mr. Speaker. We need to have this authority, and all borrowing should be done through this authority so that we are not over-borrowed. Because when we say that we have not reached, and countries like Japan, who are 300% in deficit, UK, USA, yes, but they have a way of getting the revenues, and the revenue streams are good, but we are not borrowing at the same rate, interest rate as them, because they borrow at an interest rate of 1 or 0.5%, maximum of 2%. But Kenya borrows at the rate of 10 to 12%, Mr. Speaker. If you go to the treasury bonds, they have got a face value of 12 to 13%. So, Mr. Speaker, in the absence of this authority, the borrowing is going to go haywire, and we need to borrow, like Honorable Sakwa has said, we need to borrow for productive sectors of the economy. Because if we are going to borrow, and then that money, like His Excellency the President about 3 or 4 years back said, 2 billion is stolen every day in this country. Mr. Speaker, we need to get down that the money we borrow is not stolen. That is the main part, because if we are going to borrow money to be stolen, then there would be no point in borrowing that money in the first place. Let's put it to productive sectors of our economy, so that once that economy builds up, we've got money, people pay the taxes, and we can build our economy. But the result is not that we keep on borrowing, and we do not know how we are going to pay off. Mr. Speaker, this budget and the next budget, which we are going to be debating very soon, 1 trillion is going to go in paying debts and interest. And the interest payments are so much, Mr. Speaker, that we cannot afford to do any development. So we need to have a structured way of paying off our debts, and how we are going to borrow the debts. And I wish that once we have this authority, that the Cabinet Secretary will stick to this authority and bring any new borrowings or any new debt on the exchequer or on the consolidated account will be brought for approval to this Parliament, and it will not just be for purposes of cosmetic purposes, that a policy statement is brought and changes are made to the debt ceilings and all that. So, Mr. Speaker, I want to congratulate Honorable Sakwa. I don't know if we will have time to have finished it, and I hope His Excellency the President Uhuru Kenyatta will sign this into law and we establish this authority. But with the short time which is remaining, I hope we can get it, but we should stop over-borrowing. This country cannot afford all the debts which we have at the moment, and the debts which are there need to be spaced out much, maybe 20 or 50 years, so that at least we have got money for development. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I second.
Honorable members, allow me to then propose the question that the Public Debt Management Authority Bill, National Assembly Bill number 36 of 2020, be now read a second time. The first member to have a go at this will be the Honorable Uyai Amisi, member for Saboti.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I do agree with Honorable Sakwa that our debts needs to be managed in this country, that we've borrowed so much, and it needs to be aligned to the overall economic growth. But however, Mr. Speaker, I'm reluctant to support the bill because from the memorandum of objects, the principal object of this bill to establish the Public Debt Management Authority as an independent body to manage the public debt in the country at both levels of government. There, of course, exists the public debt management. So making another body with the word independence. Independence in this country just exists on paper. It does not result to value addition to our problems. So just by making a body independent, even parliament is independent, but in reality, does it really perform their duties independently? The country's debt is rising at an alarming level. Yes, we do agree. But transferring the functions of the public debt or management office to an authority. Mr. Speaker, authorities, bodies in this country have become hard to be implemented and they carry out independently the functions. We did establish and they passed bills to establish several authorities before. And we later on repealed and abolished the same bodies because their functioning becomes they are difficult. It is not an authority that is going to lower our debts. It is not an authority that is going to manage our debts. It is the prudence, it's the prudence of the government and the change in the habits and the culture of the country in terms of graft and the corruption. It is not bad to borrow, but what do we do with the money borrowing that we have borrowed? That is a question and cannot be solved by an authority. This is a question of the government and the prudence utilization of resources. That question of corruption and the graft cannot be solved by simply establishing an authority. Then you look at the functions of this authority. They are basically the function of the public debt management, combined with the function of the treasury, the finance minister, combined with the function of the central bank, and even the seconding of the CS in charge of treasury, the central bank governor to this authority. You are simply transferring functions from one body to another. Are we going to solve our debt crisis by establishing an authority? That is the million-dollar question, Mr. Speaker. We are not going to solve our debt crisis. We are only going to solve by looking at how prudent. In fact, what we needed to do is to enhance the already existing public debt management office. If it is about the laws or the acts that guiding it, the loopholes, the lacunas that exist, then that's where we need to fix the problem, but not establishing, because you are, even if it is a matter of corruption, you are transferring the same corrupt officials to that authority. It is not it's not going to functions out of the blue. It's the same officers, the same office transferring to now a body you are calling an authority. And the management of which you are creating an extra, you are giving the mandate to even allow the county government to start borrowing. Now, are you trying to solve by limiting the borrowing culture? You are still transferring it and devolving the borrowing culture to the county level. Now, even giving more leeway for the county government to borrow. Something that you are trying to solve, you are still devolving it to the county level. Now, do the counties have the capacity? Do they have the security? Do they have the collateral upon which they can get external loans? And the establishment of the county levels, they are still at the tender age. The working, the environment of the county levels are still at the tender age. Are they now mature enough to start, making, agreements, external or internal agreements? So these are the areas that I think, as good as the intention of Honorable Saka is, I do not believe that establishment of an authority is a cure to our debt crisis. So I therefore oppose. Thank you.
The Honorable Oduol Adhiambo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I would like to support the Public Debt Management Authority Bill and indeed thank the Honorable Bunyasi for providing what we can see, Honorable Speaker, is a timely and necessary intervention. Honorable Speaker, in listening to the Honorable Bunyasi and looking at the core concerns that are addressed, one thing that comes to my mind is the manner in which, Honorable Speaker, we have failed to translate very good intentions and policies into desired results because of the absence of a framework that would deal with the particular issue that ails us. And Honorable Speaker, I know that the Honorable Hamisi has indicated that there needs to be a way of determining that can we look at an authority replacing the Public Debt Management Office. Would this be a way to solve the problem? Honorable Speaker, from my perspective, I think the key issue that we have lacked is the framework or clear framework on institution that enables us to deal with a matter that is of concern. And looking at the proposed bill, Honorable Speaker, as we examine the key challenge that we have, that is debt management, in recognition that even as we have the key challenge of this runaway debt, one in which, indeed, Honorable Speaker, whereas we have a Public Debt Management Office, we do not provide room for, as the Honorable Bunyasi indicated, full disclosure that would allow the institution or the arm, the legislature where we are, to rise to the occasion and do the kind of work that is called for. Looking at the bill, and in particular, Honorable Speaker, noting the key aspects that were raised very clearly by the Honorable Bunyasi, see that we are at a point of time in our country where we must acknowledge that despite offices that exist, indeed including what we would see as responsibilities that we assign key officers such as the CS Treasury, we still have a very key problem at hand. And Honorable Speaker, it is clear that the current arrangement in terms of providing the necessary checks and balances as we look at the expenditure, as we look at the revenues, particularly as we look at revenues that we seek to get through taxation, Honorable Speaker, that clearly impact on the life of those that we represent as we seek to look for regulation, those that we represent when we want to ensure that we can provide a way that would help them, as we look at the women and men, the people all over Kenya who continually seem to be the ones that bear the burden, when every time as we look at the revenue through taxation, we keep indeed adding the burden to them and not taking by the horn, so Honorable Speaker, where it is that the problem lies. I would want to agree that as much as we could question the performance of authorities in the past and see that sometimes the authorities have not performed as expected. Honorable Speaker, when we look at this key concern of debt management, when we see the manner in which the very institutions that are charged and individuals that have responsibility are expressing a sense of helplessness as we continue to look at the way that the debt management is not really handled, and the very institutions such as ourselves, Parliament, the Honorable Speaker, and the individuals that are clearly assigned this responsibility seem not to be able to make progress. I would want, Honorable Speaker, to see that the only course and what we would then need to do, because we have the role of representation, but we also must every time, Honorable Speaker, look at the problems that our people are facing and then do what we are expected to examine the arrangement, to examine the framework, to examine absence of framework therein, and come to deal with it. And so, Honorable Speaker, as I support this bill, I'm doing it in particular from the perspective where, in my understanding, based on how it is that current situation is obtaining, we do not have a clear framework that would, in a way, contain, guide, and hold to account the borrowing that is taking place from Treasury. And Honorable Speaker, it is clear that this borrowing is not only international, but from a domestic angle that we indicated. And we are here, Honorable Speaker, very clear that we all are helpless when we look at the pending bills. And as a matter of fact, Honorable Speaker, my experience in the committee meetings, every time when we are looking to address the budget, it appears that there is a sense in which both the executive, the ministries or MDAs that come, as well as the committee members, have come to look at the situation of pending bills as one in which there isn't much that can be done. And so, Honorable Speaker, I would want to support this bill, and I do so because, Honorable Speaker, there is really need for us to have a clear hold on debt. We must borrow, but, Honorable Speaker, there must be full disclosure of the borrowing. Honorable Speaker, we want to ensure that there is a clear indication of the benefits that will come from what it is that is borrowed. Honorable Speaker, we want to also go back to the point where we make institutions work and where we ensure that frameworks that enable institutions to hold on to the needs of the people can indeed give the desired results. And looking at this bill, looking particularly at the situation where we are, looking at the relationship between expenditure and return, looking at sometimes the helplessness that comes from the very institution, the arm of government, the legislature, that would indeed be the one that stand in to hold to account and ensure that we do not have runaway borrowing. I would want to see, Honorable Speaker, that we are able, to the extent that we can, if there are amendments, we could bring them, but this really is a timely bill addressing a very key concern, and therefore, Honorable Speaker, I support.
Honorable members, considering the kind of outcry we face out there also often in regard to public debt and the role of Parliament in it, I think this is one of those interventions that by the Honorable Bunyasi that would have attracted a lot of debate from members and attention from members in this House. I think this is the kind of bill that this House, I would have been happy if the House was full and there was agitation on this floor and we wanted to wrestle on this one. But I'm worried because this is the real core of this House. Budgeting and providing, holding the purse, as it were, in this country. And this is the core, and the Honorable Bunyasi has given this House an opportunity. The Honorable Odhiambo, the member for Suba, prepare. I think you would have to prepare to, we must debate this on a serious note, even as I give the Honorable Muli Fabian, the member for Kangundo, an opportunity. This is not one I would like to end at this point. I think members must seriously take this one and debate. The Honorable Fabian, proceed. There's nothing out of order, the Honorable Anyonyi. Let the Honorable Fabian proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to earn my voice on this important bill. Honorable Speaker, as you know where we come from, it is true the Constitution 2010 has given a room to examine authorities, but we can't run away when we get good authority to say that we have many authorities which are not working, which were not established, were not enacted by the government. This House is mandated at Article 95 to examine laws and most likely to bring laws which are better for this country. If you see the debt in this country, the way they are coming, the debt is a room which was given by Vision 2020 because our budget has a lot of deficits. That's we end up following United Nations charters on borrowing foreign or borrowing domestic. So I like also to thank Honorable Sakwa for coming with this bill. It is the high time we manage our bills. Whatever the system will be used to manage our bill is very important. And that's why I'm waking up to support this establishment of this authority and this bill. So, Honorable Speaker, it is true second world countries, they have grown where they are because of borrowing. If you borrow with good sustainability, good policy, your country is going to grow. But this country, we are living in a place where we don't know when we borrow, we don't know how we borrow, we don't know the considered factors which made our country to go for borrowing. So having an authority which we can go there and ask this, it is true Kenya borrowed 8 billion. What were the factors which were considered? What was the reason that money was borrowed? So this is why we need an authority where we can go there and say, it is true. Many countries borrow, but we just borrow without the 1, 2, 3, the reasons which we are borrowing. So if we let just only the information, say the Minister of Finance, not many people can access there and understand which is that authority dealing with it. But when we examine independent authority sitting somewhere, anybody can come inside, anybody can come anytime, can go and inquire what amount was borrowed, what the reason was borrowed, and what the oversight, what check and balances we can do, because this amount was borrowed to build roads. This amount was borrowed to build buildings, especially now we have Agenda 4 for this country. We need to know how much money we borrowed for this building, how the money was used, and how it followed. But given the suspense we have from the ministry, we don't know how they borrow, we don't know when, we don't know how much money they are getting, Honorable Speaker. So not only foreign borrowing, Honorable Speaker, also the domestic borrowing in this country is funny. You get the public shareholding companies, they go borrow even shareholder, they are not aware.
The Honorable Fabian, just hold your horses. The Honorable Anyonyi, member for Kwanza, what is out of order?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, given the importance of this particular debate, I don't know whether I'm in order to be able to ask you as a sitting speaker today to give us time to talk about today, because it is a very important bill that we should actually be able to discuss today. And I can assure you, if all members are here, more than 50 members here, the Speaker, you will see just what people I'll suggest on this particular motion. I suggest, the Speaker, if you allow, to have this as a priority debate this afternoon, so I can be able to discuss this particular motion or bill.
The Honorable Anyonyi, yes, I align myself with your concern. And for me, from where I sit, if this House were to debate just this one and get to the roots and understanding of what the Honorable Bunyasi would like us to understand here, I think we would have served Kenyans in this particular House. So I agree with you, and if it was entirely up to me, I would prioritize it. I would definitely put in my effort where it is possible so that this one receives the attention it deserves. But having said that, members, the Honorable Fabian, you are on your feet when the Honorable Wanyonyi interrupted for a good cause. But we have also been caught up by this time. So you will have a balance of 8 minutes when this resumes. The balance of time for consideration of this bill will be 2 hours, 30 minutes. So honorable members, wherever you are, prepare, look at the bill. Let us debate this one adequately and from a point of information. This is our purpose here. So honorable members, yes, honorable members, and the time being 1 p.m., this House stands adjourned until today, Wednesday, the 16th February 2022 at 2:30 p.m.